Put it out somewhere.
Can you hear us?
Hey, Tom. Yes. Okay,
There he
cool.
is. Okay.
You're looking a little green, Tom. You feel okay?
Actually, it should be looking purple.
Yeah, I know. We need to fix that at some point.
Because it came in after the agenda.
I have it
already
to
gone.
the eyes, man.
Yes. It says there's two participants.
Tom,
Yes.
one quick question. We received two bids on doing some netting over the portico on the front of the building. They didn't come in before the the Monday deadline for the agenda. We can add them for discussion, but we can't vote on them, right? Even though this information's in the package.
I believe that is the rule, that if it's not on, that it can be put on for discussion,
It's not the law.
but not a vote, unless y'all want to waive that rule.
I've got another, company putting a bid in.
Okay.
They haven't got it yet. They just, I just reached out to them yesterday when we saw the other prices.
Do we want to add it to the agenda or just leave it till next month?
Just leave it till next month.
That's what I've got.
But we may have to, I saw the air conditioning, we may have to add that. The air conditioning issue that came in this morning. That's more pressing to me than.
Yeah, I know.
There's no vote. We have nothing to vote on. We
Can't
go
vote
for
on it.
discussion.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to call the August 12th, 2021 regular town council meeting to order. First item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. If you'll stand and join with me in that. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And our Assistant Fire Chief, Randy Southern's going to deliver the invocation.
Let's pray. Father, we thank you for getting us through another day. We thank you for the opportunity to gather in this town to discuss the business of this community under your auspices. Guide and direct those here tonight who will be making decisions. Guide and direct us all as we go about our daily lives. We ask especially your touch on all those that we remember on our hearts with special needs. We give you thanks for all you do for us. And we give you the praise, for it's in your name we pray. Amen.
Next item on the agenda, review and adopt the agenda. Are there any changes or additions to the agenda?
Mr. Mayor, could we add fire safety report out from Randy right after we adopt it?
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, I had an item on the agenda, it was bicycle racks for the park. I have not finished my research on that. Somebody had said something about it, and I thought, well, it might be a good idea, but I want to research it a little bit more and go out and see what they got at other parks, because I don't want to put just if we decided to do it, I don't want to put something cheap up there, so I don't see any reason to spend a lot of time tonight discussing that.
Is that number 15?
I'm not sure what number it is,
It is.
but
Bicycle racks?
yeah, I'm interested in that.
You want to continue till next month?
Yeah, let's just continue it, because I want to have some pictures and things for everybody to talk about, and I don't, so.
Okay. Let's continue 15. And 16, I was unable to work a schedule with the county commissioner. I wanted to talk with Jim Rigsby and I. So we're going to try to schedule that for next week. So let's postpone that until the September meeting, number 16. Any other, do we want to discuss the 2 air conditioning units or just wait?
I think it's premature based off,
Okay,
we really don't know.
just everybody knows.
Yeah, we have 2 AC units that are probably on their last legs, so.
Okay, we've got 2 changes, continue item 15 and 16 until the September meeting. Other than that, I make a motion, we adopt the agenda with those 2 changes. Do I have a second?
Second?
I'll call a question. Mr. Rigsby?
Aye.
Derek?
Aye.
Jimmy?
Aye.
Darren? Aye. And aye. Next item on the agenda, the review the minutes from the February 15th, 2021 council meeting. Any discussion on those, or someone want to make a motion to approve them as presented?
I'll make a motion to present them as they stand.
I'll second that to approve them.
Motion and a second, any discussion? Call a question. Jim?
Aye.
Derek?
Aye.
Jimmy?
Aye.
Theron? And I. March 4th minutes, the special called town council meeting. Any changes or additions? Do I have a motion to adopt those without reading?
Same.
Move to approve the March 4th, 2021 minutes as presented to council.
Which one?
We'll make him a motion and Theron a second.
Yeah.
No discussion, I'll call the question. Jim?
Jim Rigsby's aye.
Derek?
Aye.
Jimmy?
Aye.
Theron?
Aye.
And I. Let's go ahead and let Randy Southern make a fire safety report.
Chief Gallin's out of town on vacation this week, so I'm going to share with you a little bit about the fire department activity. For July, we had 87 calls. Our numbers are starting to creep up a little bit. During the COVID scenario, we didn't run quite as many calls for some various reasons. Folks stayed home, and we didn't run quite as many calls to the nursing home as we usually do, but things are beginning to pick back up to our norm. Out of those 87 calls, 54 related to medical and/or traffic accidents in some way, shape, or form. The remaining 33 were fire-related, which includes everything from real significant fires all the way down to trees in the highway. I would add that we had 502.5 hours of training in the month of July. I think that speaks well for our paid staff and also our volunteer staff. So we are working even when we're not running calls. We also did 5 public education events, which reached out to 429 citizens within our community. So again, I think that was a significant effort on the part mostly of our career staff. Last year, our year runs from July through June. We ran 969 calls. So if we continue at 87 a month, we're on track to break our own records. Our tip for this month would involve weather. We're in the hurricane season. It's not uncommon for us to have some wind and rain through here, but it's far more common for us to have thunderstorms and sheer wind damage. So we would suggest that you have some supplies stocked up at your house, particularly water. If you got a generator, be sure it's running. Be sure you're putting the right kind of gas in it and test it out before it is needed. We would also ask that you stay prepared for general power outages. All it takes is one tree limb in the right place and half of Stokesdale might be out of power for several hours. So weather would be our tip for you this month, that you stay tuned in to what's going on in the area and be prepared just in case.
Quick question, if I may,
Yes, sir.
Chief. Are you seeing a decrease in the number of drive-ups on opiate issues like we were having?
On opioid issues, yes, so far, it has not been as prevalent as it was for a short stretch there. I'm sure Todd has said before, I'm pretty sure I've heard him say that in meetings here, we can generally tell when a new strain or a new batch is coming through. We'll pick up on the number of opioid calls, either that we are dispatched to or that drive up in the parking lot. And fortunately for everybody, that's been down for the last several weeks. So hopefully people are doing the right thing instead of the wrong thing.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any questions of Randy? Thank you.
Thanks, Randy.
Dale, board report.
We had 640 water bills sent out this month. 4 water meters were sold. 84 811 were processed. Priscilla stayed on the phone for several days trying to get the front of town hall cleaned up from the birds. And she's also set up a new chlorine vendor, which I know some of you are aware of. The chlorine vendor that we've been using is, they've decided to sell out and retire. The information that the board approved last month has been sent to the North Carolina Retirement System, and we are slated for their October meeting to be heard. They project it will not actually take effect until the first of the year. And we received 84 resumes for the town clerk position. And other than that, it's been an extremely busy month, just keeping tabs with everything else going on.
Okay.
Are those in the file? Excuse me, the resumes up here, are they in the file?
They are, they're in my office.
Come up and look at them, okay.
Thank you, Dave.
Thank you.
Any report from the planning board? Any report from the events committee?
Just that the Christmas parade is Saturday, December the 11th at 1 p.m.
Okay. Property committee report?
Everybody knows about the air, well, y'all know about the air conditioner, so.
Okay.
We're gonna,
we'll be
we're
waiting on
gonna
that.
speak on the mulch later.
Yeah.
And like I said, I just sent some pictures when I walked in tonight to a third vendor. I just was a little, wanted to get another estimate since the price on that
Okay.
came back like it did.
Financial, Kim Thacker.
Good evening. Okay, we'll start with the general fund first. I have several things to go over tonight. In the general fund, the checking account with the Bank of Oak Ridge, we have $195,450.57. CDR totals with Bank of Oak Ridge is $2,588,021.58. Fidelity, the checking account is at $197,564.01. Petty cash is $150. Our accounts receivable for the general fund is Gary's salary and FICA is $754.24 for the month of July. Our shared expenses, the water reimbursement, totaled $12,433.93. And as you guys know, we are about a month and a half in our new fiscal year with our new budget. And you should have a copy of the budget versus actual, and you'll see in there that we're good with everything so far, thank goodness. And the shared overhead expenses, again, is $12,433.93. And that's as far as the reports for the general side. The water enterprise account, total CDRs for the water enterprise account is $499,057.21. Our checking account, $522,486.87. The capital reserve fund is $50,009.93. Our North Carolina Management Fund, Capital Management Trust Fund, $571,546.79. The regular savings is $45,044.23. The accounts receivable on the balance sheet, you guys will see, Chris and I had a pretty good discussion about the accounts receivable for the water accounts that for year-to-date. Right now, total, they are $28,405.80. That includes active and inactive accounts. We also talked about, she said that $4,495.60 of that is inactive, but give or take a few because of builders. She said those are a little bit kind of different accounts, so we can't really include those in the inactive, although they are inactive. But her and I are gonna go over that, more as well on that. But you will see on the budget versus actual that July alone, we have had receivables of $11,867.90. And then you will also see, our payables for the water fund is the same as, of course, the receivable for the general is $754.24, which is Gary's salary and FICA. And the accounts payable for the shared overhead expenses, again, is $12,433.93. And that's for the reports for that. Now, there are several other things I would like to go over with you guys. It's been really busy in the finance department. We have a lot going on. I have completed and submitted the report, the LGC 203 semi-annual report. That's a semi-annual report that has to be filed every July 31st and every January 31st. And July 31st is for ending June 30th. January is ending for December 31st. This report is submitted through the local government system online to the State and Local Finance Division of the North Carolina Department of State Treasurer. These reports are a summary of our cash and investments, and those include our petty cash, deposits collateralized by the pooling method, deposits collateralized by the dedicated method, our deposits for CDARS, and the North Carolina Capital Management Trust. The total that I submitted on the LGC form for 6/30/21 was $4,691,104. I am in the process of completing the form, the NCE 585, which is the form that we submit to the North Carolina Department of Revenue. That's for our sales tax reimbursement that we get back each year for the general fund and also the water enterprise fund. We have an annual workers' comp audit that is due August 31st, and that's with the North Carolina League of Municipalities. I'm gathering all the information for that, and their period they're requesting is 7/1/2020 to 7/1/2021. I have been closing out fiscal year 6/30/21. I'm balancing and gathering information reports in order to submit to our auditor, Mr. Rex Rouse, to begin the annual audit for both the general and the water enterprise accounts. I am also scheduled for local government finance classes the entire week of August 30th through September 3rd, so I'm pretty excited about that. It not only helps me with knowledge, more knowledge for this, and I'm excited about that. Lastly, what I would like to speak to you guys about is in May, Governor Cooper recommended that the North Carolina General Assembly match state fiscal recovery funds from the ARP, and that's the American Rescue Plan, with local fiscal recovery funds so that we can maximize the value of impact of the federal dollars, from water and sewer infrastructure to housing. Governor Cooper wants to give two communities that cooperate a bigger share of the state funds. May 20th, I submitted the application for these funds through the NC Pro, the North Carolina Pandemic Recovery Office, and received confirmation that it was accepted the same day. August 4th, I received an email that my signature was needed as an authorized signer to accept the grant award terms and conditions. I have signed and accepted the grant under the conditions outlined by the United States Treasury. The town of Stokesdale's estimated grant amount is $725,475. This will be provided in two disbursements. The first disbursement will be in 2021 in the amount of $362,737.50. The second disbursement will be in 2022, no sooner than 1 year after our first disbursement. The town of Stokesdale has until December 31st, 2024 to use or encumber the funds. If encumbered, we have until December 31st, 2026 to finish any and all associated work. I will have reporting duties for the funds to the United States Treasury, and the first report is due October 31st. So I'm assuming we'll get our money before then, or I have nothing to report. Although the UST, the United States Treasury, has not provided directions on how to submit the report as of yet, it is anticipated that the first report will be simple and denote that funds have been received and provide documents that support our top-line budget number that we provided the North Carolina Pro, the NC Pro. And just a couple other things. Council, we are required to maintain records and financial documents sufficient to evidence compliance with Section 603C of the Social Security Act, the Act, Treasury's regulations implementing that section, and guidance issued by the Treasury regarding the foregoing. A special revenue fund needs to be opened to track any and all expenses. I assume this needs to be voted on and recorded in the minutes for the bank in order to allow me to open the account. And I highly recommend that, so any and all expenses can be, because if you read all of those documents that comes with this, there's a lot that entails by keeping up with all of this stuff. So I think an extra fund would be the most sufficient for that, so we could just run everything through that fund.
Would we put that in a general fund or water fund?
I would say the water fund,
Water
where this
enterprise.
is mostly for, of course, it's your decision, but I think that it should be on the water side, because that's mostly what it's for, is the infrastructure for the water.
Yeah, from a tracking and disbursement standpoint, it'll make it simpler if we have our own account. But really, I think we need to have, for the purpose of the American Rescue Plan, it might be best for us to have a special reserve fund for the American Rescue Plan. So we would essentially have 3 funds in addition to our general and water fund. This is kind of its own animal.
Right.
Yeah,
So.
and they're pretty strict, the restrictions are they're strict, so.
And then we'd need to make appropriate budget amendments and income.
I'm not 100% sure about that. That was in my notes to talk, I'm discussing, there is, I can't remember the name, it does not matter. There is someone with the facility that I can actually talk to and ask questions, and also I can talk to Mr. Rouse about that as well, to find out which way, should we do budget amendments or should we not?
And
I'm kind of torn because it's going to kind of be its own animal, like he said, you know.
Kim, let's see what they say about it in your training class. I think, that'll be pertinent to anybody in that class, is how to handle these funds.
Yeah, and
so
if it's not asked, I'll definitely
I
ask
was
the
about to
question.
say, please ask the question.
I will. And if anything else, if anyone has any questions pertaining to this or anything else I have gone over, please do ask me. And if I don't know the answer regarding to the recovery funds, I will research and get back with you.
Someone want to make a motion that we put that in a separate water enterprise account?
Yeah, I'll make a motion that the town of Stokesdale open up a special reserve fund specifically for the American Rescue Plan. And that should be reported out monthly, as with
Let me
everything
ask
else.
a quick question. Do we need to accept it in a separate motion that we're going to participate before we put it in a bank account?
We have already done that.
We did that last meeting.
We have done that.
I second that motion. Any discussion? I call a question regarding setting up a separate account. Jim?
Jim Reese's aye.
Derek?
Derek's aye.
Jimmy?
Am I?
Derek? And I.
Mr. Mayor, can I say one more thing when we're on this subject of water and grants? I spoke to Sebastian King on the phone yesterday, and he had mentioned to me that he was working for the town to get us some additional grant money, and he thought that may be included in the budget and I was looking for it, I can't find it. I saw it on the news today or Facebook about the water budget or infrastructure amendments had been added to the budget. So that may be some additional funding that may be coming our way through the North Carolina legislator. I don't know how much it'll be.
50,000 is the number I spoke with them about.
Yeah.
And I think that's from the budget surplus from the state. And my understanding is that 50,000, if we were to get it, could be used for any expense for the town. In other words, the park.
And I had a meeting with the county manager, and he's been wanting to go make local visits to the small towns. And I invited him to come to Stokesdale. I told him that we were getting fairly close to consideration on a secondary water line.
Okay.
And that we would like some money from him. We've made an appropriation on that, a request on that. So hopefully we'll get him out here and get some more discussion going. We're gonna keep harping away on that, trying to get our share. Okay,
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thank you, Kim.
thanks, Kim.
Thank you.
Citizens' comments from the floor. Tina Reynolds, I think you wanted to come, if you will, come to the podium and give us your name and address, and
Sorry, I'm not a public speaker, so just bear with me.
No, it's good.
3
Good
minutes
evening.
is gonna be a struggle for me.
That's okay.
Tina Reynolds, 8616 Blues Creek Road. I just really had a question because I'm not quite sure where to start. Have a little issue with a neighbor, but that's for another day. My question is, I am looking at your definition of ordinance 217 and regarding fences. And I did speak with Oliver Bass yesterday, and I actually spoke to him. I spoke to him last year as well about this. I have a neighbor who has planted 46 massive trees along one side, 18 across the front. She has put a fence on the other side of her yard, just one side. This tree fence is going to basically block out our views for Pilot Mountain, our sunsets, everything that we bought our property for. And so my question is, and when we spoke on the phone, I have a very different definition of vegetation than what Mr. Bass has. If you look up the definition of vegetation, vegetation is basically what you see like brush and, you know, if a pine tree drops a seed, a tree that grows. Vegetation is really with no human activity. She's planted over 100 trees in her yard. That is not natural. And to be honest, I've had many conversations with her about the trees. The whole reason, like I said, we bought the property were for the views, and she basically told me, this is my property, I'm gonna do what I want. I have a really hard time with just accepting that because although she's enjoying her property, she's actually taking all enjoyment out of my property from me. So back to the definition of your fencing, at the end of it, it says excluding hedge or other vegetation. So I'm standing here basically questioning your interpretation, Mr. Bass, of vegetation and a definition, a true definition of vegetation. You know, I have no problems with her having border hedges, a front border to block her from, you know, Blues Creek, but ultimately she's devaluing my property. And after many conversations, she planted more trees. So I don't know where the line is, where her enjoyment of her property and her devaluing mine or taking all of my enjoyment away from my property. And Mr. Bass was kind enough, he sent me an application. It was for the town of Stokesdale, it's a Board of Adjustments. And your application requires a $100 application fee plus her permission to complain about her. And then I got another, he also offered me another way, and that was a $250 fee, and she would be grandfathered. So the only leg that I possibly could stand on is arguing your definition of vegetation. I mean, this woman has created a wall of trees. And when I say trees, I'm not talking about some pretty, you know, magnolia trees. She's planted like green giants and Leland cypress trees that are going to grow anywhere from 30 to 50 feet tall. And on the other side, she has an 8-foot fence with probably about a 12-foot bump that blocks out her. I can't see any of my neighbors. She's basically secluded me from my neighbors. So it's only down one side. And she left the other side open so she could enjoy the sunsets. She's told me she didn't want to block her view, but she was fine blocking mine. So I'm basically here just wanting to know where I can go from here to argue the definition of vegetation and what is too much. You know, you have a definition of fence, a height restriction on fence. Well, trees are wood. And ultimately, you're you know, you have a height restriction on fences in the front yard. Why are trees not included in that very clear definition? You know, to have one tree here and there, that's beautiful. To have a wall of green giants staring at you when you come out of your garage is not beautiful. It's isolating. It's scary. I'm there at my house a lot. I work from home. I have people who travel in my family all the time. So she has isolated me. I'm not going to feel safe once they start growing. And I feel like I have no leg to stand on. I can sit here and argue view. I can sit here and argue definition. I don't know what my rights are, if I have any, because the codes are not clear. So I need somebody to help me. And, you know, and I even said to him on the phone, I said, I'm not taking anything away from your position, but it's a really, really hard pill to swallow when one man can tell me basically in the kindest way, suck it up, buttercup. You're going to live there and you're going to look at those trees because you have nothing to stand on. So that's what brings me here tonight. You know, a tree is a tree, but 100 giants in her yard, that's just not acceptable. So I just don't know what to say.
I'll let Oliver explain the definition if he wants to, or interject any thoughts he has on this.
Well, I base my interpretation on the definition of your ordinance for fences. It mentions some inorganic materials like wood.
I have it.
Yeah.
I
But
have the
it
definition if you want it.
explicitly excludes hedges and vegetation. I consider trees, whether planted by a person or grown naturally, to be vegetation. And I guess that's where our differences come. And that's what's my interpretation. And then I informed her in order to, as the assigned Stokesdale enforcement officer, one of my charges is to interpret the ordinance. Any challenge to the ordinance, anybody have a right to challenge a decision of an administrative official by going through the Board of Adjustments. And that would be the avenue for challenging that position. I also said that there would need to be a text amendment that would clarify that, and that's where the application came from. I'm not sure you need a permission of the, I don't know, if you need I'm not familiar with the requirement that the adjoining property owner gives you permission. They'll be notified of a hearing, they'll have the right to speak at that hearing, but I'm not aware of that requirement.
But there are no restrictions into the number of trees, or like, a lot of people do these jolly, green giants or Leyland cypress on the sides of the yard. We have, we have lots that go down as small as 30,000 square feet. We have lots that are 10 acres. And so there's no numerical restriction on those, are there?
No, there's no numerical, and some towns includes vegetation in that definition, but this ordinance it's explicit in its exclusion of vegetation from the definition of fence.
And it'd be almost impossible to put some kind of height limit on a tree. We got majestic oaks in Stokesdale that are 100 feet tall.
Right.
And
One comment, in the event this does go to the Board of Adjustments, the town council is the Board of Adjustments, so we should really refrain from much comment here.
understand.
So,
I'm just trying to get some general
Right.
thoughts on our rules. Tom, do you want to address any of this?
I don't think I need to. The only thing I would, advice I might give to the citizen, in addition to seeing if there's any violation of the town of Stokesdale's ordinance, or their rules, would be, what other rights she may have as a neighbor, and she'd need to talk to a real estate attorney about that.
Are you in a neighborhood where there's a homeowners association?
No, we actually are right up Blues Creek. We are basically just a development of 4 houses. And I'm the
At Oak
first
Level Church
one.
Road?
I'm sorry?
Are you at Oak Level?
No,
Okay,
no. So literally, it's just 4 houses in a row that one contractor built. But, so I guess I need to know what my next step is, because I understand what you're saying, but you're ignoring the definition of vegetation. You keep saying vegetation, but you keep thinking that vegetation's any tree that's planted. But vegetation is without physical, mental, or social activity. So vegetation to me is the brush that I paid $3,000 to have removed from my yard. That's vegetation, not someone who went to the store and bought 100 trees and physically planted them in her yard. Now, if saplings grew from that, she could call that like a natural vegetation. So I think that's where our line of communication is getting blurred, and, you know, it's just amazing. And I couldn't find it online because he, you know, Mr. Bass is saying that it's very clear in the definition. It's not, because I wouldn't be here. But I was not sure if North Carolina had any kind of view ordinance.
I don't know if North Carolina has it. I don't think Stokesdale has one. Mostly land use regulations are generally under the authority of the local jurisdiction.
so I guess her best option is to come to the Board of Adjustments for a interpretation. Tom,
Of course,
I'll
that's
let
up.
you decide.
So coming to the board for, isn't going to serve me any purpose. It's going to cost me, you guys have made it so that it's not going to benefit the complainer. You know, I'm going to spend $250 for the next person who stands here who had basically the enjoyment of their property robbed from them. And it does not benefit me because you called me back to specifically tell me that she would be grandfathered. So I'm getting ready to spend my retirement looking at a wall of disgusting trees, and I have nothing to do about it. So I don't, you know, you charge money, and then for the person who's complaining, it has zero benefit at all because you told me they're grandfathered. So I need somebody to guide me through this, because I think ultimately at the end of the day, we need to have somebody research the word vegetation, and that needs to be very much clarified in the ordinance, because that's not vegetation, that's planted trees.
May I reinforce what our town attorney stated as far as a potential expert in that, and that would be a real estate attorney that would be able to come out, and I'm sure he would have some pictures made. He would probably research it a little, you know, more so than just any of us, and a general practice attorney would, and that'd be where I'd go. And it's kind of like going from your pediatrician to the surgeon that's going to do the work, and that's.
It's just a very hard pill to swallow that you're telling me to spend
And I-
thousands of dollars.
I worked 2 cases about 3 years ago with a friend of mine who was having problems with very similar. And the general statute, and I'm sure Tom can understand this, the general statute is, North Carolina general statute is very limited, doesn't really talk about that at all, other than overhanging trees and damage and, you know, your tree's coming over my yard, so if I don't give you a letter to trim it off, if it falls, I still pay for it type deal. And that's all I ever found in it, and I'm not an attorney, I'm on the other side of that, but
So if I do get, I'm sorry, if I do get an attorney involved, who are they going to speak to? You?
Tom, did you hear her question?
I heard her question, and I think the attorney can just give her advice, and then that attorney can let you know what the next steps are or what they can do for you. You can either do that, or you can contest the definition of fence and file something before the Board of Adjustment, and then present your case about the definition of vegetation, which is what you're talking about.
Right, and does that grandfather her, though? So if I go through all of this and I give you my $250, is she still safe to keep her wall of trees?
When I mentioned the concept of grandfather, that would apply in the case of a text amendment to the zoning ordinance.
Right.
She's already established the tree line. With the adoption of a new ordinance, you cannot go back and enforce that on that property owner. Only new situations it would only apply to a new situation. That becomes a legal nonconformance.
Okay, I will seek some kind of counsel just to run this through, but it seems to me that my only way through this is that someone doesn't agree with you with the legal definition of vegetation. That would be my only way of having her remove the trees, at least a portion of them. Other than that, it would just be clarifying. I just want to make sure I understand so that I go to an attorney with some idea of what you're telling me to do.
Tom, just so I can clarify and understand this as well, going back to a recent case that we had. So let's say she does that and she files for clarification on our ordinance, and she doesn't like it, and she goes to Superior Court. Would that be an avenue for her to take the Board of Adjustments ruling to a court level to determine if we're consistent with the vegetation and the fence ordinance, or if they're using the fence, they're using the trees as a fence, I guess is what she's probably asking. Would there be?
That's what it sounds like to me as well. And essentially what happens is Mr. Bass makes an administrative ruling on her request. And then if she appeals that, it goes to the Board of Adjustment, and the Board of Adjustment would review everything and receive evidence, and then render a decision based on that same request. And then if that's to be reviewed further, she would take that to the Superior Court, and that judge would then look at it to see if we, found facts and applied the correct law and made the correct decision or not.
Okay, thank you. Does that give you some clarification on the process?
It does. I just have one more question. So ultimately, though, it seems like it's still going to land at your feet. And it doesn't seem like you're going to change your mind on what you think the word vegetation means.
That's my interpretation. It's the Board of
Okay.
Adjustment, they have authority over that interpretation.
Okay, so
So if you're found to be in violation.
I'm just, so before I leave the meeting, is it possible that I could get whoever's over your head? So, because I don't want to go into this process if you've already got your mindset, because you don't live in my house. And it's, like I said, when I stood up here, it's a very hard pill to swallow that one man can tell me whether or not I'm going to enjoy my property or not.
The county planning director is my supervisor. You're more than welcome to give him a call.
Okay,
At any time.
okay.
I
don't
think
have any
ultimately,
dog in
though, this
fight.
comes through us, though, instead of not the county supervisor. But I think ultimately, what he's doing is he's basically acting as our agent to interpret the ordinances that the town of Stokesdale enacted at some point back in time. So, I think ultimately going to his supervisor, I mean, you're not gonna make him change his mind, is I guess my point.
Well, that's what I'm
It's gotta
saying.
come through us, and we've got to look at, none of us have even heard of this until, just now. So we've got to sit down and look at that ordinance as well and
Right.
make our determination based on your case, I guess, versus what we interpreted. So I think ultimately it's our decision and not his supervisor's decision.
correct.
Okay.
I'm just
Now,
trying
I
to
just wanna know what
clarify your
my
path for you.
best line of, going forward is. So not to say, I'm going above your head. I just don't know where to go.
We literally, if we have a Board of Adjustment case as we're having in a regular meeting, we go from being the folks that we are up here to a different role and hat.
Okay,
Only on that one case,
Okay.
make a decision, render the verdict, and then we get out of that and go back in as council people. So there is a physical and a separate board of adjustment.
okay. So I guess, but the one last thing was, I don't think it was answered. So if I go through this whole process with you guys, with the adjustment, it still leaves her grandfathered if it's changed for me.
I don't
I
know.
don't know about that
I
because.
can answer that, yeah.
Yeah.
I think what Mr. Bass said was, if you were asking for the definition of fence to be modified, if you wanted new wording put in there, then any change in that wording would only apply going forward. Because, you know, the people who modified their land and did things or put up a fence relied on the wording and the definitions that were present. So if you're simply saying, look, I'm not asking to change the wording, I'm simply arguing that vegetation doesn't include trees. You know, if you're saying I'm going to take that language and I think you misapplied it, then in that case, if the Board of Adjustment agrees with you, it would be applicable to your neighbor.
That's what I needed to know. Thank you. Yes,
Okay.
and I'm not saying vegetation doesn't include trees. It just doesn't include 100 she brought in a truck.
Okay. Thank you very
That's
much.
what I'm saying. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak? Seeing none, we'll move to public hearing. First item, rezoning case 2106, STPL 05566. Properties at 6905 US Highway 158, and it's owned by Lucy Wilson Joyner. Oliver, you want to make a report?
Yes, sir. I'm going to refer to the staff report that I submitted to the planning board, to the planning board at the July 22nd meeting. This is rezoning case 21-06 STPL-05566. Property address is 6905 North Carolina Highway 158. Request is to rezone from HB Highway Business to RS30 Residential Single Family. Property is located on the south side of North Carolina Highway 158, approximately 400 feet west of Ellison Road intersection, tax parcel 150698. The request is to rezone a portion of said property that fronts along Ellison Road to HB Highway Business, from HB Highway Business to RS30. Contains approximately 0.82 acres. The property is in the area, the portion of the property that's going to be rezoned from the highway business to single-family residential. The request is, I'm sorry, got kind of lost on this. But basically, going to the character of the area. The area has a mix of commercial and residential uses. Although zoned HB, subject property and the adjacent properties north each has a non-conforming single-family dwelling. The existing land use is a single-family dwelling on the portion that fronts on Ellison Road. There's a vacant commercial building on portion of that fronts along US Highway 158. Make that correction, it says Highway 90, it should be 158. With regards to the land use analysis, it is covered under the Stokesdale Future Land Use Plan, adopted 2007. The Future Land Use Plan designates this area for professional and manufacturing corridor. The professional and manufacturing corridor is planned to provide an area for the growth of office space and light manufacturing services that is consistent with current uses. This corridor would start at the edge of the town core on US 158 and terminate at the intersection of Highway US 158 and US 220. The northern and southern boundaries of the corridor are identical to the scenic corridor. Currently, this portion of US 158 contains industrial, highway, business, office, residential, and agricultural uses. No new industrial areas are proposed due to the number of areas currently zoned but undeveloped. With regards to the consistency, the proposed use and zoning is consistent with the Stokesdale Land Use Plan because the professional and manufacturing corridor does recognize that the corridor does contain existing residential uses. Staff recommended approval. The request is reasonable in the public interest because professional manufacturing corridor does recognize that existing residential uses are located within the corridor. The parcel has an existing single-family dwelling as a non-conforming use and structure in the HB zoning district. And the parent tract was subdivided into a 3-lot subdivision in 1988, and 2 lots were under a residential zoning at that time. One additional parcel can be divided from this tract and qualify as a minor subdivision, and therefore would not require connection to the town water system per the newly adopted Stokesdale Development Ordinance. And if approved, an amendment to the future land use map would not be required. And you should have a written recommendation from the planning board, and they recommended approval for this request.
I've got a question for you, Oliver.
Yes, sir.
It's my understanding that property was subdivided about 1988 into 3 lots. And those houses, I don't know if they were, I guess they were built after that. I don't know. Some of them are older. How did they build a house if it wasn't zoned RS30 at the time?
Well, I am not sure what the entire, I know at 1988, I believe before the town was incorporated.
Right.
At some point, that property was rezoned from manufacturing to residential. It was residential, but at some point, after that property was subdivided, it was zoned RS residential at the time the subdivision was created partially.
Right.
But at some point after that, probably when the town did a citywide zoning, they identified that area as commercial. Probably because there was an old motel or something, or maybe that was
A restaurant and a motel.
I'm speculating on that, but that's probably why it was.
So you think Guilford County or the town of Stokesdale rezoned that highway business without the consent of the owner?
I didn't see anything where, any cases where the owner filed after that initial rezone, after that initial request. I didn't see anything in the records that showed that.
And that's my understanding. They didn't make a rezoning, have not made a rezoning request, so I'm just trying to figure out how their property got rezoned from single family to commercial. But nonetheless, let's hear the case.
Can I, Mayor, on page 2 of the front copy here, there needs to be a correction at this point made on the second paragraph where it states in favor and then says Mr. Anthony Vaughn, attorney for Lucy Joyner. That needs to be taken care of and corrected. Mr. Vaughn is the surveyor and not the attorney. So before we go any further, that needs to be addressed.
Okay, we make that change.
That's your Saturday job.
You'd lose your credibility.
Oh,
Jimmy.
I'm just cutting.
Tom, I hope you didn't hear that. Okay, anyone wishing to speak in favor of this rezoning request, if you will come to the podium, give your name and address.
Of course, it'd be their attorney.
Anthony Vaughn Surveying Company. This is, I think everybody's probably pretty familiar, this is the house. The property is owned by Jerry Joyner's mother. It's actually in a trust, a Lucy Wilson Joyner Trust. And they own the house that Jerry lives in, which is the old home house that Parker and Lucy lived in. And then Lucy, of course, Parker and Lucy built a new house, which we always call the Roundhouse, over on Ellison Road. And the restaurant itself is not under the trust. It's owned by Jerry and some others. So we we're able to locate everything and determine that we feel pretty confident. And Oliver has looked at what we did, although he has not had any kind of formal review or approval, that we can meet the setbacks barely between the old motel and Jerry's house and conform with RS 30 and HB. So I think we're okay there. Anybody, other questions anybody has, I'll be glad to try to answer.
One other question. It's my understanding at this point that there are, 5 units in that motor court? Basically, 5 or 6, something like that.
I'm not sure about that.
Each of them is occupied by a family member, and it's not a commercial entity and hadn't been for a number of years. Does that change it at all?
I don't think so. We're not trying to change the zoning on the motel. It's still HB. So I don't know. Oliver could probably answer that better than I. But
That was part of the question Jerry asked me when I was eating
Right,
here one day about how do you get rid of HB?
Right.
So,
Okay. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor? Anyone wishing to speak in opposition? Hearing none, the close the public portion of this hearing, and the matter rests with council. And to get it on the floor, I make a motion that we approve the rezoning on this property from HB to RS 30.
I'll second the motion.
We have a motion and a second to approve the rezoning request. Is there any discussion? I call the question. Jim?
Jim Rigsby's aye.
Derek?
Derek's aye.
Jimmy?
Jimmy's aye.
Darren?
Aye.
And I. Thank you, Mr. Vaughn. Tom, I hope you didn't take too much personal affront to that. I was just kidding.
He wasn't kidding.
Anthony's my old college roommate. I give him a hard time all the time.
It didn't affect my credibility whatsoever.
Okay, next item. Text amendment case 2107, STPL 05973, warehouse self-storage as permitted use in general business and highway business district. I'm just going to read this, and Oliver can add his recommendations, well, not recommendations, but just overview. Town of Stokesdale Planning Board will hold a public hearing to consider a text amendment to the Stokesdale Development Ordinance as follows. Amend section 4-3, table 431, permitted use schedule to remove warehouse self-storage as a use permitted in the general business and highway business zoning districts, and amends section 6.4 to remove subsection 6.4.91, warehouse self-storage development standards for general business and highway business. Oliver, I'll let you make a report on this.
Yes, this was a text amendment that was initiated by town council, I believe at the July meeting. It was presented for the planning board to review and make their recommendation. With regards to it is a proposal by this town council, so I didn't think it would be appropriate for me to recommend for or against.
Right.
It's at the discretion of the town council. However, in terms of adopting this, you want to look at certain consistency statements that you might apply in terms of adopting this ordinance, and including in my staff report are vision statements. So you may want to review that vision statement and consider how does those amendments would tie in to some of the ideals that's presented in the vision statement when you're considering whether or not it is consistent with your plan. So that would be my recommendation as you make your decision. Of course, the planning board did make a recommendation to approve it, but they also recommended an effective date of January 1 of 2022.
And why was that?
There are some concerns about zoning cases that may impact the ability of the person to pursue their zoning. Of course, they pursued a traditional zoning, but there was some issues raised that, the intent was to do a self-warehouse, although you cannot really consider when you do a rezoning. a straight rezoning land uses, so they would be prohibited from doing that. And that was a concern by the planning board. They will be prohibited if they have not submitted a site plan by the effective date, then they would no longer, the applicant, and it's generally speaking, the applicant would not be allowed to establish a mini warehouse unless a valid, complete site plan has been filed. So that was their concern.
So if we're concerned about many storages going in highway business, are they not concerned about, I mean, it looks like it'd be concerned there. But you can't speak for them, I'm not asking you to, by no means, I'll leave that for these guys when we get to it here in a minute. Because I understand that you.
Yeah, but that was, just the applicants would be, that was consideration in general applicants and their ability to pursue.
Right. Okay, we'll probably get to a little bit more of that here.
Okay.
A little bit.
Any questions to Mr. Bass? Is there anyone wishing to speak in favor of this? Is there anyone wishing to speak in opposition to this? I didn't hear.
Bryce, if you want to come up and introduce
Yeah.
yourself and.
My name is Bryce Rush. I'm from 2207 Sandy Ridge Road, High Point, North Carolina. Only thing I just want to say is because we were the ones that actually got the zoning for, the storage, what we plan to be a storage facility. And we just don't want, we've been trying to get site plans and everything. It just takes a while to get all that done. So we just need a little more time to submit a site plan before you make any decision as far as an effective date. I do believe that storage is a low traffic, it does, I think it deserves to be an HB, but if you don't, see that, I understand that as well. So I just wanted it to be known that, I just want to be able to have opportunity to build my facility. I just haven't gotten a site plan in and would like to have a chance to get it submitted before this goes through.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Rush, do you not believe that somebody else with highway business ought to have opportunity to build something too? I mean, it sounds to me, it's almost, and I'm not knocking you, I voted, I was here, so. It almost sounds like that, we're gonna give a franchise for Stokesdale storage units, to a couple of people. And, I don't know, but it doesn't matter, you don't get to vote on it, but do you see where I'm coming from on this?
Yeah, oh yeah.
So some of the things I may say tonight, it won't be anything against you or your grandfather or anything, y'all good people, so,
Absolutely, I understand.
okay.
Okay.
Thank-
Then to get it on the floor for discussion, I make a motion that we adopt ordinance number 0-2021, an ordinance amending the Town of Stokesdale Development Ordinance, Section 4-3, Table 431, permitted use schedule, and Section 6-4, subsection 6-4.9. Do I have a second?
Wouldn't we need Oliver saying you would need a purpose behind it, or what were you saying about that?
Well, generally, when you're doing a text amendment, there needs to be some consideration of you need to at least consider, give an indication that you consider the
Does that need to be in the
consistency
motion? Maybe that's a Tom question. It's more of a legal question, so.
It need to be evident, in my opinion, that you considered the land use plan when you made with the comprehensive plan when you made your decision. Tom may have a little bit more of in terms
That's
of the
why
form.
Made the motion so we can get it on the floor for discussion, and then we can give our reasons for and against.
You can add to the motion if you want to later, can't you? If we need to. You can
To
make
what?
an amendment. I say you
Oh,
can
sure,
make
we
an
can amend
amendment
the
to the motion
motion.
if you need
Yeah,
to.
I'm just
Yeah,
trying to get it on the floor.
No, I got you.
That's fine.
Okay, have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Call a question?
Whoa.
Just to make a motion to it.
Call the question.
No.
That don't open it up. That's a vote.
Okay,
Discussion.
okay, let's have a discussion then. And I'll start this out. I've always thought, and our long-range plan suggests that we use warehouse uses down on the 158 corridor. And as you know, we have 2 or 3 mini storage facilities there. And basically, that's the only place in the history of the town of Stokesdale that we've done that. We had a case on Highway 68, that was a conditional use zoning years ago. And they restricted that to certain things like dentist office, professional offices, and a few things like that. They came back within the last few months and wanted to add a provision where they could do mini storage up there and change that conditional use zoning to a conditional use zoning that allowed mini storage. The vote on that was 3-2. And I think it was 2 months later, Mr. Little came in with a request on the other side of Hall River Road for roughly, I think it was a 4.78 acre tract with just a straight highway business zoning. And he basically laid out that his intended purpose was for that. But before he voted, Tom Medlin, our attorney, said that, make sure you understand, you're looking at a straight rezoning to highway business. I just don't like the idea of putting mini storage facilities in general business or highway business. I think they take away from the character of what you're trying to do in your general business and highway business. And I think a lot of people have some concerns when you start looking at that. No matter how you screen them, they still look like mini storage. And I just think the appropriate place on that is a light industrial or heavy industrial zoning classification. And I think that should be in the areas we designated in the long-range plan, which is on Highway 158 East. And that's the reason I made the proposal. If you remember, we had a number of people from Arbor Run who came out and spoke in opposition to that one request. The first one, there was no opposition. And so that's where I'm coming from. So I'll just let everyone express their opinion.
Well, I understand where you're coming from, but basically what you're doing by doing this is, one, you're giving these guys a franchise,
A monopoly.
a monopoly in Stokesdale. And two, you're taking away a right that people with highway business have had, for years. I mean, this was here when the long-range plan was made. That could have been changed then. And I know we're getting ready to look at that, but I just feel like you're taking something away from people. And I've looked at Guilford County's development ordinance. There's highway business, general business, other places they can do it. Is that right, Mr. Bass? It's highway,
Well, that's four,
under the development ordinance.
under development ordinance, there are 4 districts that it can be permitted.
Yep.
With design standards.
And highway business and general businesses?
Yeah,
Two of them.
general business
Yeah.
and the highway business, there are design development standards is what it's called. And then it's a permitted use in light industrial and heavy, light industry and heavy industry. So what that means is it just has to comply with the zoning district requirements, and there's no additional standards.
I've went through Minicode and looked at small towns, and basically the same thing. And I'll tell you, I don't care if they ever build another storage unit here. If they build theirs, fine. If they don't, fine. I don't care if they ever build another business in town. I mean, it's just not, it's not that I care about that. I'm not gonna try to stop somebody from building a business, but I just think it's the wrong thing to do. You're just taking something away from people that may have that option, and they may never do it. May never be another one built. And you don't have to zone it. I mean, you can put a landfill, LCD landfill on highway business. You see that on there? Look at that. So, the monopoly thing, I mean, and what's next? What are we gonna do next? We're gonna decide we don't want any floor shop somewhere, or, I just think it's a slippery slope. I said it, I voted for it to go down to the planning board. We also had a planning board member send us a thing, he got confused on it, he had power outages and stuff. But I voted for it because you wanted to send it down there. And I said it scares me. What's next? I don't care if they build a storage unit. I mean, I don't care if, I'm not looking for storage units. I hope I don't have to use any, maybe one day. But, I just think it's the wrong thing to do.
We looked at the long-range plan, and I think a lot of towns look at trying to have certain industries or certain kinds of business in certain areas. Most towns are going to have an industrial park or an industrial area. Typically, you're not going to mix residential with industrial.
That's not industrial.
The zoning permitted use is light industrial or heavy industrial for a mini storage.
And it's
And I think
developable
that's exactly where it should be.
Yeah.
I did not realize that they were allowed under highway business or general business with a permitted, with a special, what do you call them?
Development standard.
Development standards.
You were on the long-range planning committee, weren't you?
That's right. But I can tell you there are probably 500 zoning classifications, and I don't think anybody in that group or anybody in the planning can recite exactly what's required on every zoning classification. That's the reason there's a table on that. And so, yeah, I was on the planning board. But that's one of the things that people say, if you don't like the law, change it. And that's exactly what I'm trying to do.
I see y'all.
And because I'm trying to protect people in residential areas. If you're going to put a dentist office or an attorney's office beside my house, I don't have a problem. But I don't want many storage beside my house. Yeah. So that's just where I come from. You saw the outcry from people up there when you did it. And I believe Oak Ridge doesn't have any mini storage. Summerfield doesn't. If you want to be the mini storage capital of the world, just leave it like you got it. Because all they got to do, they're not going to do a conditional use and say, I'm going to do mini storage. They're going to come in with a straight highway business or a general business zone, and they'll put what they want to up there in terms of mini storage. And I'm opposed to that.
I'd like to speak on this. Now, I was on record and I voted against the mini storage, the last one, and for the one before that. My reasoning on the last one is the exact location, not necessarily in the corridor. So I want to just be clear that as a town, that if we pass this, or that it's not going to negatively impact the ones that we've already tentatively approved under their good faith that they came to us before this came up. Speaking mainly about the one we just approved recently. I just want to make sure we're not, I guess, backdooring, them.
Yeah, and what I need to do is make a motion, amend my motion that the effective date on that would be January 1st, 2022. To protect the two people that have the zoning now but have not submitted the site plan.
To protect them, but you're not going to protect the other people that would have a right to do it.
Well, they came in good faith to the council, and the council gave them the zoning. And so I think it'd be inappropriate to take away the zoning when the rules were
I don't
like
understand
that
why,
allowed it.
I don't understand why, I mean, You voted for it if you don't want it. I don't understand. Do you have? do you
If
have
somebody
buyers
comes
for
in
it?
with a unrestricted highway business or general business, they can do anything that's a permitted use in that zone of classification. And Oliver, I don't know, there's probably at least 50 uses you could do in that. A lot of developers, if they're going to do it, they'll restrict it. I don't want to put a bar. I don't want to put a tattoo parlor. I don't want to do this, that, or the other to make it a more amenable and acceptable to the neighborhood. I love conditional use zoning where you do that because it sort of tells you what you're trying to do. But I don't like you to get your vote and then come in and change the rules and say, no, I couldn't sell that property, or I changed my mind. I don't want to put an office there, but I want to put mini storage. Why didn't you come in up front and tell us you wanted to put a mini storage? I would have not voted for that if I'd have been on the council time. That's where I'm coming from.
But you voted for mini storage just a month ago or 2 months
I
ago.
did, because I didn't have any choice. We had approved one on the 68, equidistant from Hall River, and so it would have been unethical
No, that's not
to
true.
approve one and not the other. The same situation.
That's not true. Situation number one, from last summer was already zoned, commercially. This,
Conditional use.
the situation from a couple months ago was, that was zoned agricultural, and it was against the land use plan, against the planning board recommendation, and against staff recommendation. So, it's a little bit different. I guess, I see where you're coming from, John. I mean, just speaking for me, when I'm driving down the road and I see a piece of land cleared and know that a business is coming there, naturally, I'm eager to know what that's gonna be. And if I find out it's gonna be mini storage, I'm just like, whatever. I mean, it's, so I understand folks not being excited about mini storage, but, from a free enterprise system, I don't like the idea of, Jimmy kind of said it, I don't like the idea of giving these guys an essential monopoly, and, and it's somewhat crony capitalism to amend our motion just to allow these guys to do it and then shut the door on everybody else. I mean, that is,
Well, they were granted the zoning, but they're not vested in that zoning until they submit a site plan, and that's what we're trying to cover. Now, if you have no problems with light industrial and heavy industrial going up to 68, then if some chemical plant comes in or somebody wants to do something in that effect, then I think it's going to be very difficult for us to
it won't be
vote
difficult.
against
but
it.
It won't be difficult at all because it's not a permitted use in highway business, general business. It'll be easy.
You're giving, many storages are permitted in light industrial and heavy industrial. They're not allowed in general business and highway business unless they had design standards.
Right.
So if you're going to allow mini storage up on 68, then I think you should allow light industrial and heavy industrial. That's where those facilities should be built. And if you're going to make exceptions and
So you're
allow them to build up on 68, and I think we open the door to a lot of things up there.
So you're comparing mini storage to a chemical plant?
No, I'm just saying, if you're going to give a light industrial or heavy industrial use on 68,
It's not a heavy
You're
industrial.
not doing that, it's a development standard.
okay, look under permitted use table and tell me where mini storages are allowed as a permitted use.
Many storages are allowed as permitted use in light industrial and heavy industrial.
That's-
They are allowed in highway business and general business as long as they meet the design standard criteria.
Yeah, and a design standard, I think, is only the acreage. 5 acres or less, 1 acre or more.
I believe it's that scenic corridor mess.
Okay, scenic corridor said the buildings, you're not supposed to have any metal standing, no fencing visible from the street, and we've allowed that.
I'm just saying, Oliver, can you clarify, for self-storage or warehouse, aren't there design standards specific for those uses of land in highway business and general business because of the scenic corridor?
Not because of it, because it's in the scenic corridor, it's subject to the scenic corridor. Any use
Right.
that's in the scenic corridor is subject to, because scenic corridor is an overlay. So I don't think, it doesn't apply to a single family or anything like that, but any, those type residential uses, but it applies to any development, non-residential development in the scenic corridor, whether or not it's a mini warehouse, a convenience store. So it doesn't relate to the specific use.
Now, let's talk about one of the design standards. It's can't be more than 5 acres. Well, some enterprising developer, if he's got 20 acres, all he's got to do is come in with a 4-lot subdivision, get 2, 4, or 5 acre lots, put them in different corporations, and he can come in with 4 different requests. And that's the kind of thing you're going to deal with.
Right.
I don't think that they're gonna build a whole lot more. I think people got better sense to come in. I mean, all the units we got now,
Man, every storage building in Guilford County is probably a waiting list. I mean, the market has changed since we did our long-range plan 20 years ago. With all the new construction, people need a place to store stuff they don't have room for in the house. So I believe those things will be full.
They should have a yard sale.
Well, yeah, I guess you can. You know, it's just a question of, I'm trying to protect the people in Stokesdale, and that's the way I do it. You guys look at it different.
I mean,
then
are
you
the
do
people in
what you want.
Stokesdale hurting because of this? I mean, are they?
Well, I think the lady, and I guess I mentioned her name, Betty Luhan, when she had that property, and it was a conditional use zone, and she didn't come out and fight it because they were referencing it was going to be like a doctor's office, dentist's office, something like that, administrative office. That's not offensive to anyone. But you completely changed her property when we voted for that mini storage.
well, we completely changed the property when you go down to the other mini storage too.
Yeah.
That's right, but that's the area we had designated we wanted it. That's
No, it's not.
most everything on, well, look at the long-range plan. That's where your light industrial, your Burlington Industries, your,
I'm sorry, I'm talking about the one south of Food
Rushes.
Line.
I'm talking about the one we just did. We actually didn't do one. We rezoned, we have just a rezoning. I mean, he
That's
can
right.
do what he wants to. I mean, if we stopped him,
and that's the point.
well, I'm just saying, you didn't have to vote on it. We didn't have to vote on it.
Yeah, I mean, John, this is an issue because you voted for the storage
He
units.
tried to make it conditional.
I didn't think I had a choice on that one.
Of course
Because
you
you had changed the zoning and allowed Mr. Combs to build mini storage on the property he had. It was equal distance from Bethel Church or Hall River Road, whatever you want to call it. And so if it's good for one, it's good for everybody.
We have the choice. And in that specific instance, it was not in accordance with the land use plan. The staff did not recommend it. The planning board did not recommend it. It was, in my opinion, not, in a business district. I respect council's decision to approve it, their vote, and that's fine. I didn't vote for it, but it was nothing against storage unit in specific. It was just that I didn't believe highway business was in line with the land use plan for the town.
It's right
that
beside
area.
a shopping center. I mean, everything up there is highway business.
The land use plan is specific.
Okay. If everybody's through discussing, we can call a question.
I mean, that's my point, so.
Okay.
Let's table it at this point.
No, I'm not going to table it. I personally want to see it vote up or down. I want everybody on record to tell me whether they want to do mini storage anywhere in town with a commercial zone. So, have a motion and a second. I do want to make an amendment to my motion that we would make this effective January 1st, 2022.
And we're making it effective on that date to accommodate one person.
2 people.
One.
We don't have a site plan on either one, so they don't have vested rights. So if they don't have a,
Mr. Combs absolutely has a vested right.
huh?
Mr. Combs has a vested right.
Has he got a site plan approved?
He's got a vested right.
Has he got a site plan
He's
approved?
got a conditional use zoning with storage units. That's a vested right.
No, it's not. It's not
Okay,
a,
let's let the attorney answer that one.
Oliver, does he have a vested right until he has a site plan?
The conditional zoning is different. The conditional zoning is pretty much, it's basically its own zoning ordinance. The uses listed as allowed or prohibited would still apply in a conditional zoning. It's depending on how the conditional zoning, the conditions of the approved rezoning. But, you know, I understand, you know, when you're thinking about it, you're thinking about anybody, if you do set an effective date, anybody that has plans to, that anybody can come in with a HB zoning and submit a site plan by that effective date, they will be allowed to, apply.
Right.
So that it will apply to anybody that wants to submit a site plan by that date for a mini warehouse.
But the effective date in this case is for one individual, and it's not for any other individual that owns highway business or general business property. That's the reason for the effective date, right?
Yes.
That's crony capitalism.
Now, you realize that we also have another toolbox. Somebody comes to the zoning, you could ask them to put a condition in if it was somewhere you didn't want to store.
You can't force them to do it. Why would anybody do that? Why would anybody in their right mind tell you that we're going to do something that probably council's not in favor of? Okay, I guess the people in Arbor Run will love you when we get just multitudes of these up there.
The irony.
The irony, that's exactly right. You can be accountable to them.
Okay,
So-
I answer to Arbor Run and Arbor Run only.
No, anywhere you do this, other than 158, you're probably going to get the same results. Okay, if there's no further discussion?
Yes, there is. We've gone back and forth out here and about this particular issue. We said we'd start a date and it's 2 months, 3 months, no, bunch of months. Anything can be done within that guideline time, correct? The effectiveness of the new changes.
Anybody else could come in, but they got to get it rezoned in, get a site plan in by January 1st. That's going to
Of
push it.
2021.
22.
22, I mean. So the existing folks that already have all that can go ahead and do their thing. After January 22, then that ordinance would then apply from that day forward.
Yep.
So it's not inhibiting either of the applicants that are waiting to put in, I presume.
It's not
We know if Mr. Combs even knows about this hearing, and if he, you know, I mean.
He's protected because he has a conditional use attached to his zoning.
Even if he doesn't get his site plan in by this date?
Well, I'm sure Mr. Combs will be fine with this. I mean, you know, if I had a storage unit, I'd be fine. Well, no, I'll tell you the truth, I wouldn't be. I wouldn't be. But if I was just thinking about, you know,
Yeah,
my business, that's what I'd be fine with.
Well, that's what I'm saying. We're looking at a little over a year before it applies legally.
4 months.
Yeah, 4 months.
2022. Oh, that's right. I'm
January
sorry.
1st.
Yeah, it's 21.
That's a
care if
tight
you do it
window,
next year,
that's a
I'm not
tight window.
Okay.
Let's go.
Everybody ready to vote? I call a question. Mr. Rixey?
I vote no.
Derek?
No.
Jimmy?
No.
Darren? Aye.
What was the vote?
4-1. Next item on the agenda, discussion on establishing a committee to update the town's land use plan. And I've asked everybody to start thinking about people that would be potential candidates. I talked to David Vaughn, and he agreed, a surveyor. I talked to Mr. Moorfield, Matt Moorfield, who's doing the work downtown. Thought he would give us some tremendous insight on the issues in the central town core. And I talked to Tommy Johnson, but he hadn't given me a definitive answer. But I just wondered if anybody else has gotten any potential people willing to serve or less.
I do have two people that are willing to serve.
You know, I would love to do, you know how we normally vote on planning board members, everybody votes. You put somebody in, everybody votes. Sometimes the minority members get left out on stuff like that. I'd love to make a motion that each council member pick 2 people. That would put 10 people on the board. And then you'd have to have 6 votes for 4 to move things along, which would be 60%. It would, instead of just a simple majority. And then if somebody fell out, then that person, whoever, like if you approve, if you put the person on the board, and it wouldn't matter. I wouldn't have any say in what you did. We'd just say, hey, we're gonna let each council member put 2 people on the board, and nobody gets left out that way.
I don't have a problem with that formula. What I'm trying to do is make sure that the people, the names you present, are gonna be willing to serve.
Oh,
This
yeah.
is not gonna be a, 1 or 2 month project. So
Well,
that.
one more thing I'd like to say. I think that we should do this, if we do that, I believe we should wait till, we should, okay, for one, I need to ask a question before I say this. When does this have to start? Is there an end date to when this has to be done?
It's up to the board.
Okay, it's up to the board. I think, and I've got a reason for this, when we got elected, we came in and there were things done a few months before, y'all decided to do it, that's fine. But you had 3 new people, we had to live with that, the budgets and everything else. But we've got an opportunity here, we got an election, we may have it, we're gonna have a new council member. Because Darren, you're not running, unless you're gonna do a write-in.
Nope.
So,
I'm running.
could have a new mayor, maybe not, don't know.
Running to the beach.
But I just think that if we should
Gulf
do the
of
2
Mexico.
members, 2 people each, and we should do it as soon as the election's held. We can let these guys, everybody that's gonna run, know, of course, we'll have to, it'll definitely be a council person. Say, hey, get your 2 people together, this is what we're gonna do. And then start with the new council. I mean, there's 3 of us that's gonna be here, so yeah, you got a majority of council. But I just think that's the fair thing to do. And each council member put 2 people on. And, I'll make a motion and put it to a vote if anybody's interested. But you got election coming up, and people might want to talk about that during the election, or may not want to talk about it during the election. But I think it's important. And I just hate to see, I mean, right now, I don't want to sign any, I wouldn't want to vote on any big contracts that we didn't have to do. I want to push that off to the election, even with just 2 members going on.
Okay.
I'm saying if it's something that's really important, that's different. I mean, but if this doesn't have an end date on it where we got to do it, I just think that's the fair way to do it. That way, nobody's voting anybody off. You can pick somebody I might not like. I can pick somebody you don't like, and we're not going to vote against them. We'll just say, hey, we're all council. I mean, I don't know how anybody could argue with that.
So in other words, the voting 5 up here would be then doing the same thing, but after they had been seated.
Yeah, I'm not trying to knock you out. I mean, you're leaving, and, and then somebody else that's, gonna come on council. I mean, I feel like they've got a
Is that
right
what
to.
that's what you're saying though? Is what
Yeah,
you're-
if that's the will of the council, let's just postpone discussion on this until January 1st.
Yeah, in that way.
Is that the will of the
I'm not
council?
appointing 2 people and leaving.
I'm fine postponing. I think, Jimmy, you're more comfortable waiting for a new council?
Well, that's what you're saying.
I mean, it doesn't matter. I mean, that's just I'm just
I
saying.
think it's a good suggestion.
I'm just saying what I'm saying. I'm not speaking for nobody else up here but me. I'm just saying I just feel like that's a fair way. I've sit here and seen these councils, and, we voted no for this and that. If you've got a couple people you want to put on it, and that's, it's 5 of us, that's 10 people, you gotta have 6 votes to move something forward. I think that's a good number. I just think it works out. And,
One thing I will add to yours, it could take, in knowing the people that have served on single person, one person at a time boards, I think to get that many people up here, it would probably take close to the time to where the new board came on anyway. Because that is a commitment.
It's a project.
Well, and the other thing you gotta consider, we sort of need to set some parameters, a time frame, because we can't just sit these folks down and say, okay, you generate a long-range plan. I think we need to get people from DOT, from the engineer on the water, educate them and show them some of the numbers. And, you know, we need to line up speakers and things like that. I don't want them just coming in cold turkey, even with the the various backgrounds they come from, and just say, okay, this is what we want to do. Let's get them informed so they make a better decision.
Legal decisions.
Right.
also.
Exactly.
So that's.
Okay,
I'm sure there's gonna have to be a lot of them like that.
let's make a motion, Jimmy, to continue this until January 1st.
I'll make a motion to continue this till January the 1st.
I'll second that. Any discussion? If not, I'll call a question. Jim?
Jim Rigsby's aye.
Derek's aye.
Jimmy?
Aye, Jimmy's aye.
Darren?
Aye.
And I. Next item, consideration of engineering bids on the water line extension on Ellisburg Road. We've got 3 different bids, Hazen and Sawyer, Kennerly, and Hugh Creed. There's a significant difference in the cost. Some of that was people are providing different services, so I hope you've had time to look at these, and if somebody wants to make a motion or discussion.
Well, I think just for the record, I think it'd be proper to report out the different bids we got from the 3 different companies, with Kennerly and Kennerly Engineering coming in at $18,000. Hugh Creed and Associates was $23,000, and Hazen and Sawyer is $99,000, $99,800. And folks, what this is for about 2,300 linear yards of water line that would go from Highway 65, right near John's house, down Ellisboro to the Boone Meadows. Is it Boone Meadows? Is that the name?
Boone Meadows.
Boone Meadows subdivision. What that would do is add a loop to our water system there, and thus likely improving the quality. More importantly, the water pressure in the Boone Meadows subdivision, which is a new subdivision in town. There's currently 24 houses in that subdivision. The fire extinguishers in that subdivision, the pressure.
Hydrants.
The fire hydrants in that subdivision, the pressure on those hydrants is less than 500 gallons per minute, which essentially it makes those hydrants not usable for the fire department. Also, the loop will benefit further the flow of water further up Oak Level as new developments are being built in there. Now, the line up Oak Level would be extended by the developer. That's not the town. Right. However, there is development going there. So we did explore the option of extending the water line down South Point Drive and replacing a 2-inch line with a 6-inch line. That would have been roughly $60,000. I personally feel that going down South Point was a Band-Aid, and going down Ellisboro, as we discussed, is a solution to our problem. And it will be more expensive. I just read the engineering costs from the 3 folks. The cost to lay the pipe will likely come in around $160,000. So it is an investment for the town. I am for making the investment personally.
Mr. Mayor, may I comment?
Sure.
Just to kind of clean up what was said just a moment ago. The existing water system in those areas that Derek spoke about, we do that, at this point in time, if there were a fire, it is still covered. They have options to bring other fire apparatus and tankers in.
Sure.
For shuttle operation. So just to make sure that we don't go out and,
Well, I mean, like any house that's not part of the water system, I mean, they would do
Right.
what they've done for,
well, that's
you
what
know,
I'm
100
saying,
years
that-
around
yeah,
here.
Yeah.
They tow in
pressure,
water.
That you would not have a burned down house because of that one particular item, is what I'm saying, that would.
I mean,
would-
you may or may not, but you increase the chance
No,
of
what I'm-
preventing a burned down
What I'm
house.
saying, between now and then, these people are still covered. With the
Oh,
tank.
They're covered
Absolutely.
as, just like
Absolutely.
anybody on a well would be covered.
Okay,
Can I ask a question, just some clarification on the three studies? Hugh Creed says, speaks about Ellisboro Road only, as does Kennerly, it speaks of Ellisboro Road only. The Hazen and Sawyer speaks of Ellisboro, and then comma, approximately 1,750 of 6-inch pipe through Boone Meadows. So am I correct that the Hazen and Sawyer estimate is covering both projects instead of just one? Or the other two are just covering the Ellisboro Road projects?
Why would they quote us,
If you look at the bottom paragraph on the
Yeah.
Hazen Sawyer, it looks like they're quoting for 2,200 of
Yeah.
Ellisboro and 1,750 of Boone Meadows in this price.
And that may account for a
well,
much
I
higher
don't
price.
know. We told them exactly what they wanted, what we wanted, and they know from the information we have given them on proposed subdivisions and what we have in fact, they know that water line's already been extended
Yeah.
through Boone Meadows.
I think it's an 8-inch.
It is.
So we wouldn't go.
That was our water specs, so
Yeah.
they should have known.
Yeah.
But even that, there's a significant difference in cost. You want to make a recommendation? Derek?
Yeah, so personally, I've only spoke with Kennerly and Hugh Creed and Associates. Great conversations. You know, all things being equal, Kennerly is $18,000 and Hugh Creed's $23,000. I think, you know, no reason not to believe that Kennerly cannot do this job. They have done the engineering work for the tree line development, I believe. So they are certainly familiar with the town of Stokesdale's water specs. So with that, I'm going to make a motion that the town of Stokesdale, hire Kennerly and Associates to perform the engineering work for the 2,300 linear feet of water line extension down Ellisboro Road to the Boone Meadows subdivision for $18,000.
Jim
we have a
Reeves will
second?
second that motion.
so. So this money will come from, is this the money that we're getting, that we gotta spend? Is that where this money will come from?
It could be.
Impact fees?
It could also come from the Capital Reserve Fund. It could also come from the American Rescue Plan money. But we got to spend that 1.1 from the House bill. We've got to at least encumber it by June. So I think it would be prudent to go ahead and start using that money and requesting that from the state.
And the
Which I
reason
know
we're
we-
having.
I know we're under different circumstances than we've been in the past. You know, we've had developers extending the water lines, basically, if they were within reach and wanted to, or it was within our ordinance. And we do have some money now that we've got to spend. But,
Or lose it.
or lose it. Yeah, I know it, so, because I probably wouldn't go with this. Because how do you tell one developer? I mean, somebody's gonna develop this property. I don't know who owns it. But how you tell one developer, you know, hey, we're gonna run a water line down through here, which is you're not gonna have to pay for, and then somebody wanting to do something down the road. I mean, that's my dilemma on it, but I know we gotta spend, the money's gotta be spent, and it needs to be spent to where it's useful. So,
Well,
I've got
I
a guy
think
on each shoulder right now.
I think the thing right here, though, Jimmy, is that there's an immediate need for this upgrade. And I guess for lack of better words, we can't wait till a developer comes in and decides he wants to develop so we can put it on the developer. You know, it kind of falls back on us to get this upgrade done because of the existing situation that we know of right now.
No, I mean, we
that's our
could
problem.
cure it with $60,000. By the way, were you gonna have to have an engineering study for that?
Anything over 50,000.
It's over 50, okay. So at first, it was what, 40-some thousand, and then all the prices went up, so I guess the price
I don't-
increased. So, okay. Well,
The one thing that,
this,
the only thing that I would say is at this point in time, to make sure, and I would add this to the, as an amendment, that we were not using any existing water funds in our normal work cycle of water, and that we were using the funds that were probably, as we talked about, the 1.2, go ahead and get that taken care of immediately. So we would not be depleting any of the existing accounts.
no, we would not,
That's
we would
what I
not
want
be.
to make sure.
So
that's in
I
there.
think from this point on, once we have the purchase order issued to Kennerly, and then down the road, probably 6 to 8 weeks down the road, we'll issue a purchase order to the company that wins the
Wins a bid.
wins the bid.
Right.
You know, that'll sum up to roughly $175,000 to $200,000.
Yeah.
We'll have what we need to submit the paperwork to the state, and based off that, my understanding is that they will actually front us the money, so, you know, positive cash flow,
Yeah.
and not reimburse us the money.
Right.
I'm not 100% positive on that, but that is my understanding of how it works.
Yeah, and as long as we put in there that we're not using any of our account money as it stands today.
No, this is not going to negatively impact.
Right, and I want to make sure that's,
Yeah.
because if you do that one time, folks will say, well, you did it
Sure.
again, why?
Well, I mean, my position, the reason I feel so strongly about it is because we do have weak fire flow protection in that development, as well as the existing older Boone, the other Boone development that it connects to.
Existing, yeah.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve Kennerly's bid for $18,000, and that we would use the
House bill.
$1.1 million grant, take the money from that. Is that,
Yes.
Okay. okay?
We use that motion instead. I'll second it.
Okay?
Yep.
Call the question, Jim.
Jim Rigsby's aye.
Derek?
Derek's aye.
Jimmy?
Jimmy's eye.
Derek?
Aye.
And I. Next item on the agenda, discussion of cost of backflow permits and inspection fees through Guilford County. Dale, you want to talk about this, or you want me to?
Here, there was a
Kim.
$300 application fee. And contacted Guilford County Building Inspections to figure out the process. When somebody comes in and applies for a backflow preventer, and I'm not gonna say the wrong word. Nobody seemed to know what was going on. Nobody seemed to know what the $300 was for. When they submitted their application to Guilford County, they were also charged a $40 inspection fee. We were telling people that that inspection fee was included in that $300. So she started digging, even with inspections, apparently they're not responding to us. They're not telling us if they passed the inspection or if they failed. The only way we know that is on their annual renewal. Priscilla does keep a pretty good list of the applications that she has taken. when they come in for their annual renewal inspection, she may catch some. Nobody seems to know what the $300 application fee is for. Some of the developers have complained about that. Homeowners have complained, you mean I've got to pay $300 and what's that for? So that's where it all started. So she was recommending we reduce that amount since they're having to pay the additional $40 for the inspection, $40 or more each year for the inspection. They pay a certified plumber to install the backflow preventer. So what's the $300 for, was the question she kept asking. And wanted you all to know that and consider reducing that possibly.
And on our form, if you'll see, she's highlighted backflow inspection fees, $300. And that's something we've been doing, I guess, from day one. We talked to Gene, and he said, we're not making inspections on that. So the people that are actually inspecting that are Guilford County. So, it seems like we're double charging people, and we're not really doing anything other than taking the application. Now, we've got some issues with Guilford County not getting back with us, giving us the results of those to make sure that they pass the inspection. But that's something we've got to work out internally with their building inspection.
We did
department.
discover that, and we have, I forget the gentleman's name, what we talked to. One of the inspectors explained to us that there is a website that's a public record, anybody can go and check. And so we did figure that one out, and we can go and check, but there's no way, apparently there was no way before, if somebody come in here and submitted their application, we told them to go to Guilford County. There was no way to know whether they went to Guilford County or not. If they got a plumber and put in the backflow preventer, then we would catch it a year later. But there were some that we weren't sure was ever inspected to begin with. But Priscilla is now going to, once she gets the application, she's gonna go ahead and fax it to Guilford County, to their inspections division. They will have a record of it up front and let us know once it has,
Okay.
the person has actually been in there and followed through with it.
Now, the other part of that is the commercial facilities are not within the purview of us that have to be inspected commercially, like the By-Right, things like that have backflow preventers. That's a different ballgame than what we're talking about here is residential. Pools, things of that nature.
No, backflow prevention are either commercial, they have to have an inspection every 2 years, or
Right.
people with swimming pools.
Right. Well, the pools, but the part about that is that we don't get into the commercial part. As far as the
We can give
inspectors.
them a list of people who are qualified to do those inspections, and the inspector will generally call them up and say, I came out 2 years ago, do you want me to do it again? I think I would charge $80. And when he does that inspection, he sends the town of Stokesdale a copy of his report saying, I've inspected it and
Right,
passed.
but we don't get into the money part and all that.
That's
what
between
I'm
him
saying.
and the
Right.
contractor.
Right.
Right. I think $300 is just something we shouldn't have been doing. I think we could drop that down to like $50 just because Priscilla's gonna have to do some work in terms of taking the application and sending it on, so I think
Put that
$50 would be a
January
reasonable
also.
figure. Anybody have any thoughts?
I mean, if we charge the $300 for nothing, I know it's kind of like a dock fee on cars, I can see $50, $100, for notaries and
Yeah.
running here and there for a little bit, but some of them charge 500, 1,000. It's just, if you're looking at it for profit, you got some profit.
Yeah.
If you're just trying to give somebody a service and charge them a fair price, that's not a fair price.
Yeah, and quite honestly, Jimmy, I don't think any member of council really realized that we weren't actually making that inspection. I just assumed that Gene or somebody did do that, so now that we know we're not putting out any effort, I think it's fair to drop
And
the price.
in the cases that I've dealt with in the last couple of years, it's always been referred over to a plumber anyway, by the end of it. if it was a residential and they called here because we don't do any maintenance like that.
How much time is involved in the application? If somebody,
A few minutes.
yeah, I mean, $50,
I mean, that's just a minimum amount.
you know.
So what are you, we're in discussion, you want to change 3 to 50 then on the backflow?
Somebody wants to
backflow
make a-
inspection, I'll make that,
A motion.
I'll make that motion.
Do we have a second?
I'll second Theron's motion.
Any
Actually,
discussion?
Theron, can you read out the motion?
The motion would be that we rescind for backflow inspection fees of existing $300. We will rescind that and effective January 1st.
Let's do it now.
Just
Why
do it-
would we wait till January
Let's
1st?
just do it right now.
Okay, well, that's fine.
Just do it.
Effective Monday,
That's fine.
what's the,
You,
I don't, what's
you're
the date?
reducing, but you gotta give it an amount to reduce it to. You said
that's what I'm
300.
going to.
Okay.
That's what I'm going to. What's the Monday's the what date?
The 16th.
16th, effective Monday, 16/20/21, $50 application fee, and 300 will not be in force anymore.
Okay.
Dale, if anybody comes in tomorrow, tell them to wait.
Yeah.
They'll get a better deal.
Yeah.
Okay.
that'd be
Have a motion, a second. Any discussion? I call a question. Jim?
Jim Rigsby's aye.
Derek?
Derek's aye.
Jimmy?
Jimmy's aye.
Theron?
Aye.
And I. Okay, next item, discussion regarding water accounts, proof of ownership, renter status, deposit fees, reconnect fees. I'll talk about it just a second, and then I'll let Dale, because we went around and around, about 2 weeks ago. We had a situation, a property owner had,
We take 2 minutes.
moved out.
2-minute
Take a,
break.
let's take a 5-minute recess then.
Hey, Derek, doing fine, thank you. Oh, my goodness. Hey, ladies. How are you? Hey, how are you? Did it ever rain? Did it rain when you come in?
Yeah, I gotta cut
Excuse me.
Crazy. You're gonna start wearing masks though. They're gonna still fine you, I'm not.
There's 3 levels of fines, up to $500.
Up to 500.
One and
How
a
they,
half.
that's selective prosecution. If
One
they
and a
say,
half to-
Jimmy, I saw you not wearing a mask right, 50 feet away from you,
No, no.
Walking
It's
down.
gonna have to be an LEO that does that.
huh?
The law enforcement.
But you know what they'll say, well, we don't get all the speeders.
Well,
That'll be what they say.
to me, and we should have asked Oliver if he thought about it, and because part of, they're part of that group also as inspectors, they could, code enforcement, they could be,
Oh, people
Spot
are,
checking.
people are raising hell. I've had people call
I know.
and they wanted, they're trying to get a group of mayors to speak with Mark Robinson. And they said, I've got 300 people on the American Patriot thing or something, so we're not going to apply. I think they're asking for
The numbers are going up.
big problem when they go to mandate. The damn mayors, every single mayor there told them, said, please don't mandate, because one, people want their own choice, and that's a personal decision. And if you tell me I gotta do something, some people will do it will not do it, even if it makes sense, because you're not telling me what to do.
Well, the other part of that too is,
And I tell you, somebody comes up to me, and if I go in somewhere and I'm not wearing a mask, and I may get arrested, and I may have to
just
pay
say
a fine,
thank you and turn
but
around
I'm
and
gonna
walk
get
off.
my damn $50 worth of
Awesome.
discussion on that.
JP won't work.
Huh?
JP won't work.
Well, here's the other part. This is not exempting those that have already had the whole series of vaccines either, or have already had COVID.
Did you see, I got sent to me, Pfizer vaccine, 45% effective.
Yeah.
45% effective.
Well, here's the
That's
other,
not even a coin flip.
here's the other
Well,
part.
how, if people been vaccinated, what difference does it make if those vaccines work, whether you wear a mask or not?
Well,
They were saying that and people talk about, once you've had it, you've got natural immunity. And the people from
Not
Kane said that's
everybody.
not true.
Not everybody does. And the other part about these cloth
Well, ain't
masks, they
everybody,
are-
if you got a shot every damn day, not everybody's gonna keep from getting coronavirus.
That's right.
It's your immune system. You know, they got certain levels at the ages that you don't even have to get treated, and you got 97% survival.
Children, young,
Children is like-
they're out of the question.
99.99.
But yet they're gonna put them in.
You think, I don't know, maybe kids will wear a mask in school. I probably wouldn't let my kid go to school if he
Well,
had to wear a mask.
here's the bottom line to it. I was a
I'm
certified,
glad mine have gone.
I was an
Text or an
OSHA
email from
certified
that,
mask.
from the smoothie
And the
place.
cloth mask are not,
So it's Pineapple
but
Force moving
they
into
have
that
nothing to
location?
do
They're just gonna still be there, they're just.
All right, where we at?
completely working. And the doctor,
Let's reconvene. We were talking about the water accounts, proof of ownership, renter status, deposits. We had a situation come up, property owner had a house that she'd moved out of. She put a tenant in, then he came to town council and told us, or town hall, and told Priscilla that he was buying the house, that he was gonna be an owner. So we didn't charge him but $75 deposit, 50. And because of coronavirus, we couldn't charge late fees. Anyway, to make a long story short, we thought that if you didn't pay your water bill, we could get a lien on your property. But the attorneys have advised that the bill goes with the person and not the property. And so we lost about $1,200 on that one deal. So Dale we were trying to figure out what other towns were doing in terms of, do they verify that you own the property, what kind of deposits, and those kinds of things. $1,200 bill, I guess coronavirus killed us on a few like that, where we couldn't collect late fees and things like that. But in all probability, there'd be no sense in trying to go to a small claims court for $1,200. So, Dale, you want to just sort of tell them what you found on your report?
I think you all have a little chart couple of different questions, listserv, and about the deposits, the winners, owners. And I don't know, Kim may know something and Tom may know something about the debt set-off program. There is such a program administered through the North Carolina League of Municipalities where we can recoup some money from this situation. What little bit I know about it, I don't know much about it yet. I've pulled some information, but I've got to look at it. Somehow they connect it to your tax refunds every year when you file your taxes. So I don't know what's involved yet on that. Yes, Tom advised us and several of the clerks that have taken some courses on water and so forth. We cannot, if it's in the tenant's name, we cannot attach it to the homeowner in any form or fashion. It's their bill. However, if it's the property owner, we can. Anyway, it was just a bad situation. It turns out in that particular situation, it was a tenant. The man never even tried to purchase the property. The lady took the property back and wanted to, she says she wants to fix the house up to sell this time. It was a divorce situation. Her husband was living in the house last. He's the one that actually ran up the water bill and not her. She wants to fix it up and wanted to turn the water on. It was kind of a catch-22. We didn't know how to handle that situation. So that's why we started looking at some of this. Do we want to change our policies? Priscilla said she was not aware that the council ever put a lien on anybody's property. But if it is the property owner, you can do that. If we want to follow the debt set-off program, I don't know yet what that involves, but I don't know, Kim, do you know anything about that?
Not for municipalities, but I do know, I can look it up though.
Okay. Tom, I don't know if you know anything about the
I assume it would.
debt set-off program or not?
The only thing I'm familiar with about that is that you turn that in and they can collect from any tax refund monies that people are entitled to and take it from there and pay it to the town. So that's where they collect the money from.
There are stipulations on that though, you know, who can do that and who can't.
No, I mean, I haven't actually been involved with that or assisted a town with it, but that's just my understanding of kind of the basics of how it works.
If I'm not mistaken, this runs parallel, the water does, because of how many municipalities have water systems, along the same lines as Duke Power or any power company. If you're renting an apartment, it's not the homeowner's power money, it's the tenant's power money. And if it's late, you get it cut off under your name. It's not the owner. So I think they both run parallel. One's water and one's electricity. But that the tenant's responsible if that's in the agreement. Tom, can they have a owner-tenant agreement if water's included in that fee different than what I'm saying?
I'm not sure I'm following your question. What do you
Well,
mean?
if you own a rental house and I come into it, I have to sign up for the water. But if certain people if water's included, they're totally exempt from any of that. The tenant is. If they pay one fee, $1,000 a month, and that includes water but not electricity, then the only utility they're responsible for would be, in our case around here, Duke Power or one of those, correct? It'd be if they walked out and, you know, it's still the owner's got to pay it if that was the agreement.
Yeah, well, it's not so much what the agreement between the owner and the tenant is, as much as who's the customer for the town. And if the owner and the tenant agree that the water bill stays in the owner's name and that's part of the rent, then that's who our customer is and that's who we collect from.
Okay. What about cutoffs with the people in that same thing, or is it?
It's you know, if you don't pay the bill, you're subject, you give notice to you because you're going to post a notice on the house.
Right.
So the tenant's going to be made aware of it.
Okay.
and they can always pay the bill and keep the water going, but,
Okay, all right. Thank you.
yep.
Do we want to increase our deposit for tenants?
That's a council decision. Several,
Are they paying $75 now for non-owner?
a homeowner is $50 deposit, a renter is $175.
How
$175?
So
many,
if it's turned off, a reconnect fee regardless is $75. I had that backwards.
how many people have we lost, how many renters have we lost money?
Yeah, she gave her that report.
That was a whole list,
Is it a bunch? I mean, is it
Several.
several pages at one point over the last
Several
4
pages
years.
of renters?
Yeah, skippers and stuff like that. It depends on who.
But now, one of the problems we've had is because of all this COVID stuff that went on where you couldn't cut the water off, right?
Not necessarily. It's my understanding the COVID only protects you if you were up to date at that point. Once COVID hit and then you got behind, COVID protects you. But if you were already late prior to that,
Wouldn't
we
that
may
go
have
back
some
to
recourse.
Y'all know off the top of your head how much your average water bill is?
I don't know what that is.
50, 60 bucks? I mean,
I don't know.
That really does.
Mine's normally about 60.
60. Let's just say it's 60. You got,
So
you got
you're gonna
close
be
to
about
3 months.
180, 300.
You got
before
close to
it's
3
paid.
months, deposit for a renter. I mean, you just tighten up and don't, if they get 3 months behind, I mean, their deposit's ate up, then you have to give a notice. I mean, I wouldn't wanna penalize all the renters,
Yeah,
more deposit.
renters, they already have to pay a deposit to their landlord, and
And the
I don't want to raise it more than 175
For which group?
for renters.
Renters.
Yeah, I wouldn't
Okay.
wanna.
The other confusion that we had was, right now, we don't require any proof if it's a landowner or if it's a renter. And we'd like some guidance on that as staff. If, what would you want to require them to provide us if it's a property owner?
You can pull the GIS up.
Copy of the deed.
Yeah,
But they typically apply for the water before closing on the property?
Oh, well, that's,
oh, you're
yeah,
talking about that, renters.
I didn't think about that.
Well, you can, on the renters side of it, if you're not sure who has all they
Well,
need to do is bring in a.
Right,
a
if
renter to
if it's a
bring in
renter, we can get a
site.
lease, and that's not an
I'll tell you
issue.
something else you could do is just charge the rental deposit unless they want to prove they're the homeowner. Let them have the burden of proof.
Well, then I don't know what kind of issues we have with refunding money.
Well, could you hold off on the deposit until, like you said, if they're gonna close and they're gonna come in here after they close, they're not gonna do anything till they close anyway. So they're gonna come in here and at that point, they should be able to show you some document that they're the owner. And then do the deposit then, one way or the other.
That's what got us in this situation. The man said he was coming in, and so Priscilla, on good faith, went ahead and turned the water on. She said it was several weeks before she had to threaten him to turn the water off. He didn't bring his application and paperwork in. He did, but
As far as documentation, what comes to my mind would be, if they're already an owner and it's an owner, if they're listed on the tax records as the owner, you can always verify that. If they say that they're getting ready to buy the property and they want to have the account switched from the prior owner to the new owner, and they don't, they just want to have their account established, they should have a written offer to purchase, a contract, and they can produce a copy of that to show you that they have the right to close and when their closing date is. So that would be proof that they're going to buy as an owner. Other than that, if they're a tenant, I'd request a copy of the lease or something in writing from the owner that says that they're going to be the tenant.
I think one of the other things we need to do, I know coronavirus was special rules, and they had special outs. But I think we ought to be a lot more aggressive when people are $300-400 down on their bills. I know we're gonna work with you, but the first time, and get them to do some agreement in writing. We're gonna pay our bill plus $50 a month, or a fifth of it, 20% of the bill. First time they do it, then just say, okay, the next time you're late, we're gonna cut your water off. To let somebody have a $1,200 outstanding bill is, to me, is unacceptable. And I know we've got several, maybe not that much, even a $400 or $500 bill unless they're commercial. To me, that's crazy. Duke Power wouldn't let you get 6 months down. They'd cut you power off unless you had a handicapped job or something. I don't know. But let's leave it at 175. That's the will of council, but let's get more aggressive on this thing. And let's require proof of ownership or,
I mean, we can vote on, my suggestion for keeping it 175, because I'm just thinking a renter has got a lot of expenses. I mean, so do owners that move in, but, you know, a lot of times the situations are different. But the renter has that 1 month deposit, that's a lot of cash outlay. And then if we increase the cash outlay here, 175 normally, I would think would cover for a renter, normally about 3 months water bill, about that.
At least 2 minimum.
Yeah, at least 2.
Yeah.
And you're good with the $50 homeowner deposit? Okay. The other question we had was, in that same situation with that gentleman and with the situation with the lady here, she wanted to turn the water on. Some municipalities will allow them to do that and charge them a minimum bill, whatever that may come out to be, to clean it up, do repairs or whatever. And then it's switched over either to the new homeowner or to the tenant's name. Priscilla said she's not aware of any policy where we have anything like that. I don't know if that's something you even would want to entertain, but it was something that came out of the study that I did. If somebody calls and says, I need to turn the water on for 30 days or whatever the first billing cycle is, so I can fix it up, I can paint, whatever, is that a policy the council wants to set? If not, we'll leave it like it is.
I don't. I mean, what have they been doing? I mean, they just turn the water on and then they pay the bill and get their deposit back.
Yes.
Is that correct? I mean, unless you see something I don't.
Tom, while we're talking about this, could I ask a question from you on cutting water off real quickly? In Guilford County, and I presume most all the other 99 counties across the state, if you don't have water, you fall under a different a residential habitat where the county has to be notified because you can't exist without water. Am I correct on that? Majority-wise, most counties say you have to have water. If you lose your water, you don't.
It's not habitable.
Yeah, it's uninhabitable at that point.
Right, as far as a tenant, yeah, if you got a tenant, they don't have water and they're still staying in the house.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, now, during that time, if we have and being a government agency, if we have a tenant who, let's say, is not just behind, but now they've come up with that, but they still are short 2 more months' worth, and they're not using the water, don't have any water at that point, all they're getting is the back end of it, and we find out they don't have any more for the next 30 days, they've already told you. Do we have any type of fiduciary responsibility to notify public health or the ordinance folks down in Guilford County that they've got people in a house without running water? Since we're a government agency and we're part of that whole situation.
Well, I mean, the county is the one who's enforcing the housing code.
Right. But we're
so
also furnishing the lack of or the lack present or against having the water. Is there do we need to be responsible for notifying them that we've cut water off in a residence in the town of Stokesdale?
I don't know the answer to that question. To be honest with you, I don't know if it's policy for them to do that. I think if you cut the water off, I don't know that you have a duty to notify them, but if a citizen were to call in and say, hey, these people, you still got people living in that house,
Yeah.
even though you shut off the water, that may be a different scenario.
Yeah, we've had that with a previous owner of multiple homes like that, so, okay, thank you.
Okay.
Just to go back and, Jimmy, just to go back and kind of answer your question. Through the report that I am showing right here, it does not tell me if these are renters or not. However, there's probably a report that I can pull through the water system. But the largest one that is behind is the $1,271, which is the individual we're discussing. And then the one after that, there's one for about $857. The remaining bills look like they were probably billed in July, and they just have not paid their bill yet. So, because they're small, there's a couple that's maybe $300 or $400, but the rest of these are smaller amounts, and I feel like that, but the largest one, so it doesn't look like that there's an issue with them getting to $1,200, except for with the one individual,
Okay.
so.
Okay. Next item, consideration of a proposal by Excellent Lawn Care and Landscape for mulch at Town Hall and mini nuggets at the playground area. Is that you, Jim?
It will be. So we haven't had mulch in a couple of years, or our nuggets in a couple of years, and you notice in the front, it's getting a little thin. As well as the playground, it's actually worn all the way down to the dirt, underneath the swing set. So we reached out to our current vendor for our lawn care, and he gave us an estimate of $5,800. That's for the mulch and having it installed, which I think is very reasonable compared to what we have paid in the past for that same service. So I'd just like it be considered, we need to go ahead and at least do the town hall and at least that part of the playground.
You make a motion?
I agree that it's reasonable. What have your conversations been with them? It almost looks too reasonable when you compare, when we did mulch 2 years ago, we paid $21,190 for that.
I can't really speak on, because they weren't aware and they didn't do that, job other than, we asked them to quote it and they're familiar with our property and this is what they quoted. So I can only assume that, we'll get what we asked for.
Yeah, I think it's a great price 2 years ago didn't even include the playground.
What all they're mulching? Because there's not been any mulch back to back for, I don't know when that's ever been done.
It should be generally when we speak at town hall, we're speaking of kind of the building forward and on the sides. And then of course the playground itself would be the part that's fenced or not fenced in, the part that's boarded in where the swing sets and stuff are.
Yeah, the playground needs it bad. They're gonna fill those holes in under them swings.
We can certainly ask them to,
Packets are gonna need to be packed instead of just mulch thrown in.
Yeah.
Okay.
Be gone, we kick back.
Yeah.
Did you make that a motion, Jim?
I'll make a motion that we contract with Excellence Lawn Care to provide, mini nuggets for the playground and town hall, mulch delivered and installed at the cost of $5,800.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Any discussion? Call a question. Jim?
Jim is aye.
Derek?
Derek is aye.
Jimmy?
Yeah, I guess. Now I'm a, Lord, that's a lot of money.
Darren?
Pine board stuff.
And I.
I have a question.
You've got an eye too?
Will this go under, the, park? Or, because we'll have to do probably an amendment.
I think there's enough money in the budget
Whoa.
for this.
Wait a minute.
Whoa.
What is there, Jimmy?
It's under lawn maintenance, and I think we have,
I think the $300 would be
You-
parks. I
what
think
we're
the
gonna
rest of
have
it would go to building maintenance.
No, we won't have to pull any money from anywhere.
Well, that's what I was thinking.
So you got money,
It's gonna change
I
my
just need
vote.
to know where to go with this.
Jim, if we put 300 in the park and the 5,500 in the town
Around the building.
building maintenance?
Yeah.
Or building landscape,
There's where we're gonna have to do something.
are we okay?
Okay.
Yeah, you,
Got 40 in long hair, but, and I mean, I know it's
It-
24 for the yearly.
24 plus 10
Okay, yeah,
for Hunter, and then we have 6 left over,
okay.
and we just burned it,
Yeah.
if we vote for it. But we don't need a budget amendment yet.
No, we do not.
And it's in the budget, Jimmy.
It is in the budget, Jimmy.
For that specific budget.
Yeah.
Okay. We have a motion and a second.
To make sure we were good.
Speaking of
Did
budget,
we vote on this?
We haven't voted yet.
Okay, I didn't think so. Jim?
Jim is aye, and, just as a,
You did vote.
yeah, we
That's
voted.
what I thought we
did?
did.
yeah, I thought we already voted.
I thought we voted 5-0. That,
I'm the
careful,
left,
Jim,
yeah.
we're spending
the question after.
$11,600 on this vote.
You're voting on the vote of the voters.
He's gonna vote.
okay,
Everybody's tired.
next item, Tom, I'm going to ask you exactly how we do this. Discussion of land acquisition opportunity with the town of Stokesdale. And we were going to do that in closed session in accordance with North Carolina General Statute 143, 318, 11-5. How do we do that in terms of Zoom to get you involved?
Mr. Mayor, can we just do this out in the open?
It's a closed session, isn't it?
I mean, it's certainly a permitted use to go in a closed session.
Does
but-
it have to be a closed session?
I know you're digging.
Tom, we're talking about a particular piece of property, price and things like that. I thought we had to go.
It's not required to go into closed session, but it's one of, because the general rule is open session meetings. And then this is one of the times when if you want to go into closed session, you're allowed to. And there you can talk in private about certain matters. You can't make decisions, but you can discuss and educate everybody about what it is and then come back out. So you're not required to, is the answer. The question I think I was asked.
Right, okay.
And then as far as if you decide to go into closed session, I can call you on my phone and we can just do a conference call. I just need to listen. I don't think I need to be seen. That'd be one way to do it.
Okay. You want to stay in open session or go closed?
I mean, I don't like closed sessions to start with, but, I'll do whatever y'all wanna do, but I'd rather do it in public. Myself, personally, that's just me.
I, based on what Tom just said, we're all familiar with this, and we've already been in closed session once on it. So basically, my understanding is Derek's got a price in mind, so we're just basically gonna throw the price out there. We either agree to go with that price or we don't. And I don't see any harm doing it in public because we've
Okay.
already done the legwork on it.
Let's just do it in open session.
All right?
Well, we need to strike that then on the closed session, don't we, on number 17?
Well, if we don't have to, we can just agree informally that we're going to
We-
discuss it.
We have to take a vote to go into closed session, so it won't show that we took a vote to go into closed session. It'll just show.
Okay, who wants to make the proposal or?
Yeah, so I will. Roughly, just call it 6 months ago, council did meet in closed session to discuss buying the Joyce property, which is the property directly to the north of us. It is 9.8 and adjacent to Town Park. It's 9.8 acres. There is 847, roughly, approximately, I was looking at the GIS, linear feet that border Town Park to our north. And adding this property would add, 847 linear feet of frontage to Town Park. It would also add 653 linear feet of Town Park property bordering Stokesdale Elementary School. I personally, one guy would think this would be a good investment for the town at the price that I have discussed with the property owner. When we originally discussed this 6 months ago or so, the property was listed at $300,000. Our offer came in at roughly $190,000. They did not counteroffer. So we've been, this has gone nowhere since then. I look at this, as a one-time opportunity to purchase this land and expand the park. The property owner, if their next step, I believe, was to subdivide the land, once it's sold to somebody else, of course, it becomes almost impossible for us to have land adjacent to expand Town Park. The price that I believe that we can get this land for is $222,900, and that's for 9.8 acres. I'm not necessarily advocating buy the land and get the bulldozers out and clearing it, and we're gonna do something now. I said, yes, once we own the land, I think, we have a great opportunity for the town, maybe have a committee for citizens to provide input for what they would like to see in the land use. More importantly, and, this may take us a couple years, but more importantly, I think this positions us for a grant through the state. And this $22,900, if council agrees to purchase the property, can be our part of the matching grant. So we could apply for $222,900 to convert this into use. Potential uses there, they're rather endless, but, a basketball court there adjacent to the school, a picnic shelter adjacent to the school, that would be Town Park property, trails. Jimmy's favorite, pickleball. Pickleball. You're a pickleball man, aren't you, Jimmy?
Yeah, you got it right.
But it does open up opportunity, for our town park to become more useful and better utilized by our citizens. So, the number is $222,900, and I wanted just to get council's input on that.
Let me ask you a question.
Yes, sir.
At some point in time, they were wanting us to pay the fee, the realtor fee or some fee
Yeah, so
on top of that, because it was like $199.99.
That's a good question, Theron. My discussions with the property owner, they want to walk away with $205. So they said, we'll take $205 if you pay the real estate commission fee. The $22,900 has them paying like a traditional close. The seller pays the fee. They're still netting the number they want, $205.
Where are we getting the money? We're gonna use that 80,000 that we put in the budget for the park.
We put $100,000 in the budget for the park, Jimmy, and we'd have to do.
100,000?
We would use the $100,000, and we'd have to do a budget amendment for roughly, call it 130 or.
But we're gonna use that 100,000 for that.
Yeah,
Everybody agree?
yeah,
Where are
absolutely.
we gonna pull the second $100,000?
The second 122, that would be pulled from the undesignated funds from the general,
Well, that's why I'm asking.
the general fund.
Because we're mixing and matching columns,
Right.
basically.
Ask you a question.
Okay?
You're saying 9.8 acres, and I believe that's what the tax records show.
Yes, sir.
Do they have a survey showing that 9.8 acres?
My understanding is that they were in the process of starting a survey. I think some survey work has been done. The survey they were in the process of starting was to subdivide that land into 3 parcels.
Great.
So
Well,
to my knowledge, that has not been done. That was put on hold when these discussions started up 3 weeks ago or so.
The other part,
My thought is on that there's a significant amount of road frontage on Athens and Angel Purdue Road. Depends on the age of the deed, that property may well fall short of 9.8 acres when you take out the right-of-way of the road. You could end up easily with 8 acres at the most. I just think that's too high a price to pay. Yeah, I'd love to have it. We talked to Miss Joyce
Right.
through the family, and they basically gave us first right before they listed, but, I think we paid either $12.5 or $13.5 an acre for this property. I just think that's too much.
So I hear you. It's certainly a lot of money. And it's let's see, it's 22,744 an acre. And, I'm not really have the real estate acumen to know what the going rate for 10 acres is. I think it is in line with what 10 acres is under contract for up on 158, roughly 10 acres. You know, the larger the parcel, the more the price per acre tends to go down. Of course, you know, there's so much that goes into what the value of land. Does it border the water system? How is the elevation and the grade, you know, the topography of it? You know, from our perspective and what it could mean for the citizens, you know, I think it's a good value based off what was going on in the Stokesdale market today.
Hey, my concern, you know, if it's such a good value, that property's been on the market for probably 2 or 3 years at least. You would think, I know a developer made an offer on it early on. I don't know what that offer was. But if it was such a good deal, I think that property would have been sold. I think the only reason it hadn't sold is a reflection of the price.
Well, that could be, John, or it could be a reflection of the location. It's kind of an odd location, being right there by the school, you know, by the park, and by that crazy intersection up there, and by the highway. It's a unique piece of property for sure. You know, so the value of it really is in the eye of the beholder. My understanding is that the developer that did make an offer for it, I don't know how much it was for, but you know, that there was conditions attached to that, and you know, and that's good business on the developer side, but it may have been also a barrier to entry for the developer and the seller. Like I say, the seller is going to move forward and approach this sale of the property in a different way if the town does not want it, through subdividing it and making it a minor subdivision.
Was my understanding he was looking at cutting that up into three lots.
That's my understanding as well.
So if you're talking about $220,000, you're talking about $71,000 roughly for each lot. I don't think this is a $71,000 per lot neighborhood based on the houses adjacent to it. I think there's going to be a real negative if he tries to cut lots. I'm not sure anybody's going to want to fight the traffic, school traffic in the mornings and the afternoon. I think that's a real detriment to him. Now, if he wanted to come in and try to do an institutional zoning, he'd probably get that. But in terms of a residential use, I think it'd be overpriced at $71,000. I don't think you'd get any builders to jump in at that price.
The only thing, I'm sorry, you wouldn't finish.
Go ahead.
I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead if you want to finish. You know, I'm not a big fan of expanding this money pit that we have here, but that is a unique property to us because it's the only property around us. That's the only property we got around us. Once it's gone, it's gone. And like I said, I'm not a big fan of expanding, but I feel like people in this town probably gonna want to eventually.
Did we have that property appraised?
What do you think that property?
We did,
worth,
John. John, we did roughly 6-7 months ago, and I believe it appraised at 190, I believe. If 190 is not right, give or take 5, it's close.
Okay.
And we paid for that, didn't we?
Tom, can we pay more than a fair market value on a piece of property
Well, fair
using
market,
public funds?
fair market value is not always the appraised value, but it's within reason. The appraisal is an opinion of the appraiser. And, I think you could approve this price because you previously had it appraised at 190, and, the real estate market's been hot. So that could certainly, justify a slight increase in prices as well. So I don't see any problem with that.
And on top of that, what it would mean to the town, and the ability to expand this town park. We already have infrastructure set up, such as, restrooms, the concession stand, parking spots. So, you know, as opposed to, you know, one day in the future, the town goes buy another 10 acres of property somewhere else within Stokesdale, but, you know, that infrastructure itself would not be set up there. So, you know, there's some synergies here with the existing property, and, you know, there's just a lot of commonality between the two, in my opinion.
Yeah, we have no knowledge whether that land's gonna perk or not for septic. One of the other issues that bothers me a little bit, and I'd like to have the property, I just think that's too much. You've got the 1 acre right between the gym and the old White House. That is a little bit bothersome for me, but, you know, they say they want 222, whatever your price was. I still believe in negotiating. Let's just tell them we'll give them $200,000 flat out. They're not gonna find many people that are gonna be willing to buy that property without percolation test, without a rezoning request. And any developer is gonna look at what can I sell those lots and how much is it gonna cost me? They're gonna have to run water. Depends on how they front their lots, but hey, make them another offer and just say, hey, this is it.
Let me ask you a question,
Well,
if I may.
You know, go ahead, Darren.
I know that we pulled a deed on that from several years ago or decades ago. And before we go much further, we're gonna have to go back in there and redo all that because it's got the wrong road names in the town on that property. The road intersecting names of the roads for that property, one of those roads is sitting all the way almost at the end of the town limit. So we've got to go back and redo that before they can even sell it because it's not even showing the same roads. So that's part of it. The other part is, I think 200,000 or 199 is about the base. I don't, and if I'm getting this wrong, tell me. Why are we paying the commission? On top of, because the commission comes off, and being a licensed realtor and a developer, did you include yours in theirs, or did that come off of the seller's price?
To be clear,
Generally.
we're not paying the commission. At this price point, we're not.
The 199 or 220?
The 222,900.
Well, where'd the
I thought you said
220?
they wanted a net 200 or 205.
They wanted a net 205.
So if we pay them 222, we are paying a commission.
Right, but the deal structure itself, as if the price would be 222,900, the deal structure would be, they would pay the commission.
Okay. Have you, and I don't know exactly what the language we had with Kim Martin. We hired her as a buyer's broker. I don't know what the term on that was. Do we gonna have to pay her a commission too?
Well, it's my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, but when we hired her, it was under the understanding that, you know, just like any house that, you know, we use a buyer's agent, that she would split the commission of the seller from the seller. So we were never, you know, held to paying her outright out of our pocket anyway. It would come out of the commission. So if we, you know, I don't think we're in a position to negotiate their commission. I think if we hire her, then if they don't want to pay her commission, then they're gonna have to.
Well, and that's the question. If we've hired her as our agent and we still obligation to her,
I would have to
she would
ask
get
her.
half a commission.
I would have to
And
ask her
so
about
if
the
they want a
contract.
net 205,
So my question would be, hypothetically, let's say we didn't use her, are they willing to cut half their commission off if we don't use a buyer's agent? And I personally would rather use an agent just to protect our interests. That's what they're for. And make an offer. I agree with you, John. I think we make an offer at 200. Let's forget about the commission. That's not our problem.
it's exactly right.
And let's just make an offer at 200 and see where it goes. It's a cash offer. We use an agent, and if they want to sell it, they'll sell it. If they don't, then they'll just keep sitting on it or they can make a counter offer. I just think we're overthinking the process, and we do real estate, all of us do real estate transactions all the time, and we're overthinking this. We just need to make the
Yeah,
offer.
I
and be
mean,
done with it.
Tom can prepare an offer to purchase, say, we'll give you $200,000 for this subject property and legal description. No conditions, no perk, and unless you want to have it surveyed, and we'll close within 30 days, and that's all we need. We don't need a 20-page document.
Well, you know, the one thing that I keep thinking back to, and I don't know if it's good, bad, or ugly, the perking part is not as concerning as the viability of that land, because it's so broken up right in the middle of the two parcels. You've got a old farmhouse that comes almost all the way back to our walking trail back here. So that's the only thing I'm thinking. I'd go with 200,000. I don't have a problem with that as it stands today, because you don't have the continuity all the way back because of that one big residence that comes all the way down here just about.
And
I
I
think
want the
that'd be
property. I
reasonable.
don't have a problem with 200,000, but I think 222 is
And that
too
could
much.
put the town, I won't be here, hopefully, or not hopefully. I would say that would also set the town up for grant money for several years applying for it, because you've got availability to use the front first or the back first or whatever. And you keep you own the land, the town will own the land, so as it gets more and more and more expensive, it's already there. And you could do it in phases, and you could have different types of phases, because, you know, basketball buildings, things of that nature have been talked about for a long time. So for year-round, for winter use, that kind of stuff.
Well, that grant money's one of the only reasons, because I know we're all the time going after grant money, we're gonna have to use, it's usually 50% grant. So, yeah, I wouldn't, like I said, I'm not big on expanding anything. But, one thing we got going on is a lot of inflation. It may not be worth it right this second.
But when it busts open, that land could be twice the price.
Yeah, and our money not worth,
Half the price.
anything, then we're still, at least if we do it, God, I can't believe I've even talking about doing it.
Well, I agree with John, and I don't disagree with the other two members down here. If we're gonna do it, let's set the price at this point, because when things are either gonna go two ways in my estimation. We're either all gonna be told what to do from now on and have to do it, or it's gonna bust open and that land will double in a matter of time.
And everything that goes up comes down, so
Yeah,
that,
but
you
it
know, you
does,
may have a
man,
market
it
correction in the
does
price.
this.
Yeah, I mean,
It comes down and it does this. It's been doing it ever since the turn of the century or whenever. That's what the graphs do. They bust.
sold the
I'm not going to speculate what that land's going to be worth in 10 years,
Yeah, I mean,
Well, look what
but
this-
all
we
I'm
didn't-
looking at is what's it worth now?
Yeah, and we lucked out on this, because in those days, sitting back there where we couldn't even flush the toilet, we never thought that a cornfield or a field with cattle in it would be, worth anything till we researched it. And sure enough, here we are. Here we
well,
sit.
y'all put it together. It's unique to us. I mean, the land is unique for us.
It's worth more to us than anybody.
That's right.
It's not, nobody else it is, but it is for us. And once it's gone, I don't know why the school won't about it.
Yeah.
The central office.
Yeah, but,
Tom, any other thoughts?
Well, if you're going to make a new offer, one thought I'd have is, does the council have any desire for any kind of due diligence inspection for septic suitability survey or engineering, or are you just gonna not do any due diligence period and just close within 30 days? We need a closing date. If it's
And-
30 days from the date of acceptance of the offer, that'd be fine. And then I'd also want to know if the clerk can locate the contract we had with the Realtor who represented us. I'd like to read that and see if we're still obligated with her since she represented us on the same piece of property. If so, then she's the one that needs to prepare the offer. If that agreement has expired, then I'll be glad to prepare the offer. But I'd like to answer that question.
Aha.
I don't have the agreement. I do have the offer that we made last time, just for, information. We did not ask for due diligence. We were gonna provide 5,000 earnest monies.
But we could ask Kim Martin for a copy of that, her,
Yeah, I'm
contract.
I'm sure that we've sent the contract in. I just haven't put my hands on it
Yeah.
right this second.
Yeah.
because she's got to keep
Okay.
those for 3 years, I believe.
Tom, would there be any type of town ordinance that would prohibit any particular type of usage in that spot up there, since it's a DOT maintained road that goes into the school property?
You got zoning.
Yeah, I was gonna say, other than our own zoning ordinance.
Yeah, and we control our own destiny on that.
Agriculture, isn't it? Isn't it agriculture?
We probably would get it,
22-foot
but
high-rise ag center.
we probably wouldn't get about a half a vote against the zoning request on that.
Actually, I do have the agreement. It ended on March 31st, 2021.
Okay, so we have no obligation.
We're open to let Tom.
Do,
But I'll send you that, Tom, so you can look at it.
please do, because sometimes there's extension clauses if, if you end up buying that same property, sometimes it's extended beyond. So let me just look at it.
Yes, sir. I'm sending it right now.
Thank you.
The one thing that I want to make sure before I put my hand up for a better part of $250,000 is, don't tell me what we can do. Tell me, all I need to know is what we can't do on that property, period. And a lot of that is not objective as much as it is just like the road names don't match down in the county building, that type thing. What else are we prohibited for? I'd like to hear from DOT on that roadway, if they have any plans in with widening that road, instead of putting the school folks ain't gonna put a new building out here for an elementary school. So I think if we cover all our, and we can do it in a week's time, if we cover all our bases and do as best we know that land is as it stands today, I don't see a problem with it. Now, we will have to do some finagling to get the right roads named back on it, but that's a register of deeds, isn't it?
That's a title issue.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean,
That's it.
that's probably half the old farms in Stokesdale.
Yeah, and that's
I
what
was
I'm
gonna say,
saying. That's not-
roads change names all the time.
Right.
That's not a big deal.
Right.
Yeah.
And that can be handled in the legal description.
All right. So would Tom will follow up and let council know on the status of the contract. So the offer, does council feel more comfortable with 205?
2.
If we're,
Because
if we're not gonna use a buyer's agent, then they're gonna, I would assume that they would be willing to cut half their commission if we're not gonna use them or use a buyer's agent, so,
What they done?
I mean, they should have some room there to get down a little bit.
well, if you kind of look
Well, I
at
mean,
it.
that's up to between the seller and the,
Well, if you think about it, the current sellers are getting 100% commission.
right. And
Because they
again,
didn't-
that would be between
they-
the seller,
Right, they didn't pay
I
a
mean-
penny for it. They're the fifth generation of,
their agent may
Benefactors.
just say, well, I'll take half to get the deal done. But that's not for us to specify.
I just think we make the offer and let it roll where it rolls.
as long as, I'd say 2. I'm in favor of 2 even.
What do you think, John?
That's what I do, we can always go up, they come close, but I just say, listen, this is a better offer than a lot of people gonna give you. We're, no conditions on this darn thing. You don't have to perk it. Everything else, if we gotta use that property, when you start clearing that land, you're probably looking at a minimum of $7,500 an acre. So you gotta figure another $75,000 if you wanna build
Cost us
a
$24,000 to take 15 trees off of it.
Well, then it could be a couple $100,000.
Could be 4 million
Who
at that
knows?
rate.
Well, it could be.
Well, I'll tell you this.
Let's get a better
That
contract.
money, and I was involved in this with Guilford County when I was working in Guilford County. We bought a building across the street from the federal courthouse. that was in such bad shape. I stuck my finger through the walls in black mold and people,
Oh, gosh.
agents were in that building getting sick.
I don't think that's gonna happen here.
Now,
though.
with that being said, the county not only had bought the property and the decks, but they had to do the complete building revision. They went in, they did the walls, they did all kinds of stuff. So they paid double the price for that one building. Of course, that was our, they didn't
Okay.
pay it, we did.
Let's get back on topic.
Okay,
Somebody want to make a motion?
let's see. I do. I'm absolutely gonna make a motion. Let's see. I wanna word it. Okay. I'll make a motion to authorize Town Finance Officer Kim Thacker, Town Clerk Dale Martin, and Town Attorney Tom Medlin to work with the Realtor, the property at 7901 Athens Road in Stokesdale to purchase 9.8 acres for the sum of $200,000.
Let's add a little friendly amendment on that,
Let's do it.
that $100,000 will come out of the budget for this year that we put in for parks.
Yeah.
And the other part, I guess, will come out of the general fund. I mean, that's-
Yes.
We'd have to make a budget amendment.
I know we will with that part, but
But it.
I don't wanna, I'm not gonna vote to spend 100,000 there and then spend another 100,000.
I understand
I'm
what,
saying,
I understand what you're, Jimmy.
200,000 and then another 100,000.
This will be our park investment for the
Yeah,
year.
I mean, this is a $100,000 park investment. I think it's, you know.
Well, and we still have, what, 7 acres in the
Well,
back there.
If you would, I'd appreciate you put that in the motion. I mean, you know, I'm not a big fan of expanding everything anyway, but I could live with that.
Sure.
Because I know we're gonna spend that.
So to add to the motion that this would be part of the FY '21 capital improvement expenditure in the park.
Yeah.
That would use the $100,000. Help me, Jimmy. Why don't you make the friendly amendment, doggone it?
Well, I just did.
Okay. Then I'll second your friendly amendment if that's allowed.
You think once we get that property, that's the end of our property on this area of Town Hall?
Well, there ain't no more to get.
Right, that's
Yeah,
what
I
I'm
mean, there's-
saying, so we'll cover
I mean, there's.
either that
that's
or
it.
walk
I
the
mean,
back and
unless,
fall
you
off.
know, unless.
That broken air
everybody out
condition
on
bother
CCO.
you?
Okay, we have a,
It's 200, and for Kim and Dale and Tom to work together to present that offer. You know, full disclosure, I'm gonna be talking to the property owner probably before they do, so they're gonna know it's coming.
okay.
What kind of time frame? What kind of time frame?
30 days?
30 days. We just need to make sure we have title insurance. That's important, right, John?
Yeah.
All right.
So we'll.
Okay, we have a motion. I'll second it just to get it on the floor. Any discussion? Okay, we got a motion, 200,000.
Can we cost allocate this to the water system?
I don't care, we can allocate it
Be our luck.
to,
Hey, if we
Be
got
our
any of
luck,
that
the
money,
tank will
if we gotta
fall
spend
off.
it, we can.
Yeah.
offset stipends for the next
Any
50
of that money
years.
we got from the government.
Okay, I'm
I
gonna call
vote
the
aye.
question.
I vote aye.
That, well, was there any,
1.2 million?
it was any of that money? Any of it, any of it we got that we hadn't spent? Can any of that money be
We didn't
spent?
spend any of
No,
that one.
no.
We didn't spend
The
any of that.
1.1 we can't.
No, sir.
Is there any money without us going into the general fund that we've got to spend that we can use for that, the rest of the, balance there? Okay, well, say if we did, that'd be the place to get it, cause we gotta spend it.
Okay, call the question, Jim.
Jim's aye.
If I find out different,
Derek,
Derek's aye.
we'll have an emergency meeting.
Jimmy?
I'm an aye, I guess.
Go on the record here.
Yeah, let's
Yeah.
hear it, Jimmy.
You are or not?
Loud.
A bunch of people kicked me in the
Big
leg.
spender.
Money bags.
Aye.
Aye, so unanimous. Comments from council?
Anonymous.
Expand government.
Jim got any
No,
comments?
sir, I'm good.
Derek?
Back to school, August 23rd. You know, just everybody watch out for school buses and and be safe. Luckily, the kids are going back in class this year. And on a closing note, my son does have Miss Rigsby as a teacher, so look at him.
Golly.
Accountability at its finest.
Yeah.
I do have a question or comment in general. I understand that Buy Right is going to open within the next 30 days.
Give or
Looking, Labor Day.
Generally, does the council, something like that, would the council be present for something like that if they have like a grand opening ceremony or?
If we're invited,
Okay.
Going to cut the ribbon, Jim?
I'm just asking. I didn't know. I mean,
no, I think it'd be nice if we
Yeah.
go to that, and I'm sure he'll have some.
Yeah, that's
so if, Dale, can you just reach out to him and just see if there's gonna be something, if we would be welcome to come and represent the town, since it is kind of a big venture for, for the town itself to be opening a new store up.
You're just looking for the plate lunch, aren't you?
Plate lunch, buddy.
They do have a restaurant inside. Okay,
Are the
Jimmy,
storage unit guys gonna invite us out too?
Jimmy, do you have any comments?
No, I don't have any comments.
That was a comment right
There.
there. I'm good to go.
I don't have any announcements. Planning board meeting Thursday, August 26th at 7 PM. Town council meeting Thursday, September 9th at 7 PM. And the county mandate requires everybody to be masked up Friday at 5 o'clock. Other than that, I make a motion to adjourn. Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
All in favor, say bye.
So the county commissioners, tell us what
They're still on live. He'll cut us off. Here, somebody cut them off.
Okay, that's gotta be done.
Yeah, that's what I'll tell you in a minute. Let Don tell you.
I can't believe I voted to do that. But then,